$19.93 or go to ProBuiltPatio.com.
Isn't this a sports show?
She broke my heart once again. I should have known she would trade another man.
Almost entirely.
Oh, I don't want to get too savvy. With my heart on my sleeve, the Chiefs hate it when I'm happy.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
I don't care anymore. I'm dead inside.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
This is the tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Chiefs losing before their cast-offs playoff.
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I wanna die. I don't wanna live anymore.
This is the cleaned up version, right?
I hope so.
I thought there was a curse coming in there.
I stopped listening after the Sports Radio 810 W3. I was like, okay, so 810-1. I forgot this was here.
Let's vibe out a little bit. Go ahead and let this play.
We have a dumb one for a reason. Beautiful piano work.
Welcome to Almost Entirely Sports. This. Oh.
Darkness will consume my body.
Let's go ahead and dump out right here, right hard, right there, Rudy, just in case. Just in case. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was fine.
It feels smart, though.
But I knew where the questionable content was coming. And that's our intro music here on this edition of Almost Entirely Sports. I'm Joshua Brisco. That's Rudy Salazar.
There is another like a bad Chiefs one that Beers has put this music in. And then there's a second file of that same one that says without this song. But it is not like this specific liner. It is... which one was it? I'll pull it up real fast. I just not necessarily play, but I'll get the name of it.
That's great. My main point of concern there was just that we don't add more problems for ourselves.
Yeah, it was the Chiefs lose the Super Bowl one, which didn't feel exactly right because it wasn't the Super Bowl. And so where I think you might be right is because then above that it says Chiefs lose the Super Bowl and then all caps without I want to die. And I'm wondering if it has that because Beards didn't censor the bad word he made it. So I think you might have made the right call. I'm not blaming Beards for this because I didn't even know the song was in that version. I didn't go that far.
So it was a surprise for all of us.
I think you made the right call.
Yeah, I just figured let's play it safe there. You know, you're up by 3 touchdowns, 18 points, let's say. Let's go ahead and hand it out to Jerick McKinnon a couple of times. Let's just not bleep this one up. That's sort of my thought.
I'm going to throw on the flies to Tyreek. I like to take risks.
You know what? Let's replay the whole intro, play all the music, and let's try to throw a pass through a defensive lineman. No, that's not. That was I'm gonna go ahead. Kill! Do it, Kels!
Don't.
Do it, Kels! Come over here! Punch me in the face! And my suffering, Kels! Alright, everybody. Here's the good news tonight. We do have 2 of our big dogs coming out the cage. We don't have a show tomorrow night, which means no Seth Keysor Tuesday. KU basketball here on Sports Radio 810 WHB tomorrow evening. So we've got Seth on a Monday. I broke glass in case of emergency, and I asked Seth if he could make some time for us here on a Monday. He has graciously picked up that offer. Also, just whenever we had more Monday shows before football season came around, we would talk to our dear friend Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. Goodness, we're all out of sorts today. We talk to him every Monday, and we got a Monday back again, and I want to talk to him about what the bleep happened in this game. So we have Matt Derrick at 8, Seth Keysor at 9, 2 of our very best, very favorite regulars to talk about the Chiefs with. It's just I wish we had a little bit of wish we had better material to go off of. Currently on NFL Network, by the way, if you'd like to do a little second screen experience, you can turn on the AFC Championship Game. That's replaying on NFL Network right now. I wouldn't if I were you, but it's on my TV here, and maybe I'll learn some sort of grand extra detail by being forced through all this again. You know what? I'm even more looking forward to in this game. Not the second half. I'm actually afraid to watch this first half where everything just worked offensively, because that, I think, is going to hurt more.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to feel pain to remind yourself you're alive.
We're alive. We're all here. Here's what I want to start with. The bummer thing is that there are legitimately like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different places I think you reasonably could start the show tonight, your show throughout the day, whatever.
Blow it up. Get rid of the quarterback.
Head coach, quarterback, GM, offensive line, defensive line, pass catchers. Butker can stay. Townsend gone.
Yeah.
No, you know what? Butker gone too. Bad juju. James Winchester, you can stay.
Tommy's gone, but Johnny's in.
I love that. Bring back Dustin Colquitt, whole team of punters.
Who was the Elliott Fry? Elliott Fry, this is your team now, buddy.
The only intro music that would have been better there, and I just thought of it in this context, maybe we still pull this off for Matt next hour, so presuming he's not listening right now, is if I would have begun to say something about, and the Chiefs have lost the AFC Championship game, and then there would have just been the absolutely shocking, thunderous noise of Applebee's, fancy like Applebee's, just drowning me out. That might have, and at this point, that might have actually been better. Believe it or not, that halftime show was actually the best thing that happened to the Chiefs following the first 29 and a half minutes of the game.
I wish we could have got the essentially the visual version of that in the second half, to where CBS was just playing something else so that we just couldn't watch the second half of that game.
As NCIS, one of those shows, any of those CBS shows, just play us some of 60 Minutes gets pushed back because of NFL games all the time. Just play an episode of 60 Minutes.
Every one of those CBS shows are America's most watched something. So
yes.
So I have 2 jokes on the blow it up, get rid of the quarterback.
Sure.
I'm going to throw them both out there.
Okay, great.
The first joke is, what's Colin Kaepernick up to? Second joke is, trade up for Sam Howell, because when was the last time a quarterback drafted from North Carolina ever went wrong?
Ready for mine? Here's mine.
Yeah.
I do think Aaron Rodgers should come to the AFC West.
Ooh.
Just maybe not the team you were expecting. Hello?
The Chargers.
Exactly.
Him and his long hair would fit well in L.A.
I'm going to try to give you my biggest all-encompassing takeaway here.
Mahomes for Derrick Henry. Who says no? That's my last one.
At least try to get Jonathan Taylor, He's
True.
younger, at least.
He did have more touchdowns.
I'm going to try to give you my biggest takeaway, my umbrella take.
One more.
There's another one.
Unplanned. Austin Davis is available. He's leaving Auburn as the offensive coordinator. Maybe we hit him up. Who did he play for in the NFL? I don't remember. But it says he was a former NFL quarterback. I don't know where he went to college. I should, but I don't.
I do think that was your weakest of the bits.
Yeah.
They're petering out. First half was better than the second half.
Strong.
Really mismanaged some things there.
Had a hard time getting open.
Sure did. I'm doing my best to get people distracted away from the bad job that you just did, but you just snapped a ball to me. It rolled to my feet. I picked it up and threw it to you off your fingertips. We'll itemize the receipt here in a little bit.
Southern Miss. I knew Southern Austin Davis. Southern Miss. Just threw a pick in overtime.
We'll itemize the issues later. But here's the big picture that I was able to paint a little bit more today. We've heard from Andy Reid now twice. We heard from Patrick Mahomes and Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu and McCole Hardman after the game. Reid had another press conference today. That's what got these wheels turning. But whenever we get Andy Reid at a podium, he is always 100% of the time going to take responsibility for whatever it is that's happened. If it's bad. If it's good, he'll give credit to someone else. Generally, I think a pretty good characteristic to have in a head coach and a leader and all of that. And
it's a large reason why. Large is the right word. I was going to say something else. I was like, no, you got it right. It's a large reason why
Trust yourself.
coaches want, like young coaches, and not even just young coaches, guys like Brett Veach, right? Like young football minds want to go work for Andy Reid. He props you up. He helps you get better. And he does not throw you under the bus.
Right.
Which some NFL coaches will do.
What is Vic Fangio's full first
I
name?
was literally going to say Vic Fangio.
Victor. It's certainly not Victory. It's not short for victory. We know that.
Victor, but with a K.
It's probably Victor. It probably makes sense. Andy Reid will go up to the podium. He will take responsibility for anything that goes wrong in a game that has things that goes wrong. And in this instance, he does deserve a portion of it. They should have had a timeout in the end of the first half that they didn't have. That is a coaching mistake. The offense should have adjusted to what the Bengals were doing in the second half, and they didn't. That is a coaching issue. But ultimately, I think to take Andy Reid's full 100% word for that ends up being a little bit lazy. You're taking it a little too simply there. Because what ultimately happened yesterday is that the Chiefs had a few deficiencies. They made several mistakes. And they got a brutal half of football from the greatest quarterback currently playing the position for a living on planet Earth. And so it is complicated because, there's something complex and what should they have done differently? What were the Bengals doing? What worked and what didn't? How do you fall apart from 21-3? And it's also kind of simple because the week after a game in which Patrick Mahomes played the position in a way that we've never seen done before, and in a first half, I just saw the touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill in the back corner of the end zone. I definitely thought this game was over at 21-3. You could have convinced me the game was over right then. Or at the very least that it was just going to be Chiefs-Bills round 2 and just another offensive shootout because the offense looked perfect. Mahomes was on. It's not like he came out of the gate amped and off or over amped and off or that he was taking unnecessary risks out of the gate, or that he had that issue a couple times earlier in his career. Big primetime game, the first 5 passes are a foot over Travis Kelce's head. We've seen that. This wasn't what happened, though. They had it all in front of them and got about halfway to where they needed to be. And so trying to reevaluate, trying to take inventory of what went wrong from the end of that first half and the mess that was that final sequence of the first half, all the way to the mess that was the final sequence of the second half. It is just a brutal fizzling out. And to use a dramatic word that's going to get overused in national media discourse, but I think the Chiefs earned, it was a collapse. It wasn't 28-3. It wasn't blowing a 3-1 lead, but 21-3, being up 18 points, when the Chiefs also at that point were in a position where ultimately they would have the ball at the end of the first half and get the second half kickoff. In overtime, they got the ball first. Down there at the end of regulation, they had a chance to just win it then. And we could have had conversations about not the best performance you've ever seen from Patrick Mahomes. And what was so difficult there? Why did they sputter the way that they did? But if they would have gotten down into the red zone at the end of that game, and if you haven't seen this clip yet, I would encourage you to do it because I'm going to be talking about it for the rest of my natural life. On the third down play, second last play of regulation, when the game nearly ended on a strip sack, by the way, Mahomes was in the pocket against a 3-man rush. Orlando Brown was one-on-one The other two guys on the pass rush were getting double teamed. Fourth guy was spying Mahomes. The offensive line was winning that as they should have. Orlando Brown was winning one-on-one. The other doubles were both holding. And Kelce comes across the field right on the other side of the goal line. And the ball's not there. And there's a pretty good lane. The safety's creeping up, and that could have been contested. There's the guy underneath, and that's worth noting. But it's a play and a pass that we have seen Patrick Mahomes make a million times. It is a route that was open for him, certainly by NFL standards. Even if the safety would have been another step or two closer to Kelce there, I would give Travis Kelce a chance to catch that ball with his hands, try to separate himself from the defender behind him, and pull it into his body. If the safety was on him like a backpack, I would have wanted to see at least that throw. But Mahomes doesn't throw it. They're down 3 at this point. A pick ends the game, something that several people have mentioned. I think it's very fair. Might have been a little gun shy at that point. But instead of taking that, he then does the thing where he starts to drift to the right. Now, in this case, there was no reason to. The offensive line, I think, had a pretty good day, generally speaking, and Trey Hendrickson was a problem, and Andrew Wiley wasn't perfect, but, like, it was a day you could take from your offensive line. And strangely, though, the direction Mahomes drifts is towards the right, towards the right side. If you were concerned about Andrew Wiley or whatever, again, Orlando Brown was not having any problem. And he also drifts to the right across from the guy who's spying him. Now, as he drifts, Byron Pringle, who earlier I think was pretty open to the point where he leaps up and down in the end zone, he does the thing that every Chiefs receiver has to do. We talk about it all the time. Receivers talk about it all the time. With Patrick Mahomes, there is no such thing as a dead play. You stay alive and you work back to the ball. If Mahomes is working in one direction of the field, you work there with him and you just try to stay alive playing backyard football. Pringle works back. He works back, and as he comes to the front of the end zone, he is wide open. The only concern there is that as Mahomes drifts right into a clean pass rushing lane or clean just get a full head of steam lane for the guy spying him there, Mahomes drifts right over into space, and so the guy spying him breaks into a sprint right towards Mahomes. Now, you in that whole process, you've got to try to figure out, are you going to try to zip this past him? Are you going to be in danger then of a pass getting tipped up and caught and picked off and the game ends there? Something Mahomes got crushed with earlier in the game. Or are you going to float it up and then risk it fluttering down or maybe being picked off there as well? I don't know what's going through Mahomes' head in that moment. But Pringle comes back and he is there. I already asked Seth about this. Because we did Times Ours this morning, and I also was literally texting him as I was rewatching this play, laying in bed, as my eyes alternated from the 400th loop of that play back to the ceiling, back to my phone, and back to the ceiling. I asked him, like, am I missing something here? Am I seeing the truth, or is there some aspect of this that I'm not seeing? And Seth said that is a play that I would chart as 2 missed shots on one play. He said, I don't know that I've seen Mahomes have 2 missed shots in a game since that Titans game.
I put myself through, I would say, 2.5 podcasts today. I've listened. I'm halfway through, or maybe a little under halfway through Times Hours.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The only 2 things I remember are Nate and Seth telling stories about their dads, what their dad told them, and the shot take, because my brain, I've just decided I'm going to punish myself today, apparently, by just listening to as many people as possible tell their experience of this game. One of which, who might have had a worse day, was Alex Smith, because both of his teams lost.
That's actually, that's
He
brutal.
had Alex Smith had a rough rooting day. 49ers and Chiefs went down. So,
You said you've heard the shot. What did you say?
the
dads
I think like
and
the last thing, like literally where I paused it before you got here, was Seth talking about how it's pretty rare when he watches.
the missed
He's
shots.
like,
Yeah.
like Mahomes
Yep.
missed a shot there.
Yep.
And he doesn't remember the last time it's happened twice.
It happened twice on one play. It's also, I think, and Seth's got the all-22 process kind of rolling. We'll talk about what he's got without having the full all-22 whenever he joins us at 9. But it's also happy feet. It's also getting flushed out. It's also bailing out of a clean pocket. And I don't want to play pop psychologist because there's a lot of stuff that goes into a lot of things, and this is where we can begin to kind of drill in to a few of the specifics. But I've never seen Patrick Mahomes play like he did in that second half. And I mean, the play at the end of the first half, I think, we heard the post-game comments from Reed and Mahomes. They both took responsibility for it, but frankly, I believed Patrick Mahomes saying that he got greedy. He said, I was supposed to go over the middle, and if it wasn't there, I was supposed to throw it away, and I got greedy.
I also will say,
I believe that.
I think it's the wrong decision. I don't think it's necessarily the worst decision in the world. I will generally take Tyreek Hill still one-on-one, but he made a poor pass to Tyreek Hill. It was a little behind. And again, it's not the right decision. It's just it's funny that in a game where you're down there on the the 2-yard line or whatever it was, and you come away with no points on a play, and I'm like, I don't know if that's even the worst play of the game. I know people like, again, if you get 3 points there, that final drive is a field goal to win the game, right? So like obviously 3 points.
Probably a lot changes in that, but yes.
Obviously 3 points matters a ton. In playoff games, 3 points matter, right? Because you're usually playing another good team. It's likely going to be close.
But I think that there is a fine choice to go for it. And if what Mahomes said is true, it was probably a fine play call. And you think, man, okay, if we get to a point where the last look is Hill and he's just back there open in the end zone, you can go ahead and throw that pitch and catch. You can't do that with traffic from that spot. Mahomes obviously now knows that. But I remember you, Rudy, saying, you came in after the bungled challenge, the timeout, and then challenged the Chiefs won. And you came in and said something along the lines of, the Chiefs probably aren't going to need that timeout, but if they do, that's going to be brutal. They needed that timeout, Rudy. Your antenna was up and on.
Because they had the timeout, they're in that situation with like 20-ish seconds left. And so he can throw it out to Tyreek, and they can hurry up.
Yeah.
And run another play.
Yep. They also they could have had a lot more time because they burned quite a bit of time earlier. The whole drive goes differently.
Yep.
The whole drive is different. I'm not sure that whole drive went very well, to be honest. There were some choices that I was a little bit confused by.
Tyreek Hill had the very big catch, which is kind of what propelled the drive, right?
Sure.
That's that. If you don't have Tyreek, because I agree with you, Tyreek Hill doesn't make the big catch. They're not even necessarily in that situation because there were some questionable decisions made throughout it. And of course, the penalty in the end zone. Forgot about that as well.
The other thing, though, that I don't want to get sucked into the rabbit hole of spending all this time talking about that drive. That might be the last time we really talk about that tonight, other than maybe we bring it up with Matt and Seth. I don't think it is worth our time to spend 2 hours of radio show talking about that sequence and that play. It was a squandered timeout and at least a squandered 3 points, maybe a lost touchdown. But usually what we understand in sports conversations, it's why clutch is a word that matters, is that the things that happened later in the game are the things that are more important. That's not always true. I put air quotes around more important there because theoretically, if you go up 21-3 in the first half, it keeps you in. Everything changes in the second half for what you can do if you're playing with the lead or if things go well early on. But the moments that we remember and the things that we think about, swinging win percentage and all of that stuff, it happens later in the game. I'm not even saying that's a good take or good methodology, but it's usually how we talk about them. The thing that's crazy to me is that they were up 21-3. They give up the touchdown. They have a chance to go get their points there. Again, if it's even a field goal, feels a little different. You're up by 2 full touchdowns. But just take yourself back to halftime when we were all getting fancy like. The Chiefs were coming out of that half with the football and did nothing with it.
And having scored on 3 of the 4 possessions in the first half, and the one possession they
3
didn't
touchdowns,
score
and then 2 yards
was
short.
literally on, the 1 yard line, essentially, right? They had the ball on the 1 yard line after a pass interference call, and obviously couldn't score. But they got down the field and put themselves in a position.
On that drive, first drive out of the out of the half, they have their first punt of the game, and on 3rd and 7, Creed Humphrey bowls the ball to Patrick Mahomes. That was weird, right?
Yeah.
He bowls the ball to Patrick Mahomes, who picks it up and throws a little teardrop that goes off the hands of Travis Kelce. Not the easiest pitch and catch you'll ever see, but anything that touches 8 of Travis Kelce's fingers, I don't know for counting thumbs, that is a pass that he makes, especially with the air underneath. That's a pass that he catches. And instead of a fresh set of downs, a mistake from Travis Kelce there and a mistake from Creed Humphrey there, now you're punting back to the Bengals.
If I remember right, too, on that drive, I think it was on 2nd down. Like, again, Tyreek had a ball as well that was would not have been an easy catch, but a ball we've seen Tyreek Hill catch.
Yes.
There were two balls. I would say the Travis Kelce one was easier because I've just seen Travis Kelce make that catch 99 out of 100 times. And I think he does make that catch 99 out of 100 times.
And I'll get to Tyreek Hill, by the way, because
that was the one.
There's also a take coming from Seth
I think I heard this as well.
that you may have heard.
Yeah.
That we're gonna get there. We have to just march through this
For
game
sure.
though. Bungle the timeout into the first half. That's a whole thing. You get a drop from Travis Kelce that should have kept that drive alive. 3rd and 6, the next timeout, McCole Hardman nearly got an extra 30 yards and just drawn personal foul penalties, which he probably should have actually gotten.
Certainly won.
But then 3rd and 6, and Mahomes tries to go to Byron Pringle, and it's just too far ahead of him. Don't know if that's Byron Pringle's lack of speed. Don't know if that's Byron Pringle having a hard time with a lot of press man coverage, which is stuff that he was seeing. He's always had trouble with that because he's Byron Pringle. Like, no offense. He's got a role on this team. He'll be on this team next year. He should be. Don't want to have to rely on him to be the guy that's winning those matchups. And maybe Mahomes just mentioned he's certainly not.
You know what I mean? Like there's Byron Pringle is Byron Pringle. It's like nobody get mad when you're like, hey, he's not perfect.
And also, Patrick Mahomes knows he's Byron Pringle, and that ball was not ultimately where it needed to be. Defense comes back out. You get finally a sack of Joe Burrow. It would be the last one. But Melvin Ingram.
Are you sure about that?
I'm sure about that.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw him like Chris Jones had his arms around him a couple times.
You should watch the rest of that play. I know you got excited and looked away, but you should go Google that. Melvin Ingram gets to him, and they get into the red zone. The Chiefs defense holds them to 3. You'll take that drive from the defense. Here's another thing I'll say. This defense on the whole, not great. Did not make game-winning plays. They held the Bengals to 24 points in regulation.
They did their job.
We all would have hit that button any point during the week. We might have hit that button at halftime.
We said it back in 2018. We were never asking for the Chiefs to find a way to build a great defense. I feel like we have said multiple times it was hold them to 24, 27, because basically anytime you hold a team to 24 with the Chiefs offense, chalk it up as a win. They won't always win those games, of course. Vast majority of the time they do.
And if they give up 24 points and they lose that game, don't start with the defense. I mentioned them at the beginning of the postgame show last night because I wanted to get it out of the way because I could feel that coming. I'm going to ask a question about Steve Spagnuolo and the future of this defense later.
Unless you're talking about the defensive line, then maybe there's something there. But
we will spend some time on the defense. Probably next segment we'll spend some time on the defense because I want to talk about it, but it's not where you should start with your disgust.
It's not the reason why they lost.
They end up holding the Bengals to a field goal there, despite the fact they get into goal-to-go territory. Currently on my TV screen in here, McCole Hardman just caught that great pass out in front of him. I can't believe they lost this football game.
That play you just knew the way McCole was running before the ball even entered the screen. You're like, yeah, he's got this.
Can't believe they lost
You
this
just
football
knew.
game. It was the last play of the first quarter, and they lost this football game. There's Jerick McKinnon running the ball for 7 or 8 yards. Did that happen again? Am I watching the last one of those?
I hope he's back next year.
We'll also talk about that later. The offense gets back out there with a chance. At this point, it's 21-13. You're up by 8. It's a 1.5 possession game. Just move the football, please, God. First play, Jerick McKinnon takes a handoff, picks up 7 yards. We'll talk about the running game some. I'll give you the hint on this, is that NFL teams, generally speaking, should run the football less in neutral situations. There, you do not get any bonus points for establishing the run, in air quotes. You do not get any bonus points for time of possession. You do not get any bonus points for hitting 100-yard rushing.
I don't know about all that.
All of that is true. I do not mind whenever you run the ball, whenever you are seeing 3-man pass rushes over and over and over again in a defense that is daring you to hand it off. We've had this conversation many times before. In my philosophy, the running game is your off-speed pitch. It is your changeup. It is your curveball.
So you want the Chiefs to be like Brady Singer and not have one? I'm proud of that.
I saw that Rudy did an umpire strike 3 punch-out sort of celebration after that joke.
That was pretty good. My dad told me this morning. Now I'm just ready to look forward to football season. It's like, oh, Dad.
Do you mean baseball season?
Baseball season. That's what I meant. I was like, oh, Dad.
Not as good in the second half of that joke, are you?
Might be flamed out a little bit.
Been there. Your run game in my book should be your off-speed pitch, at least if your quarterback is Patrick Bleeping Mahomes. But if Patrick Mahomes doesn't have his fastball and the guy across from you cannot hit a breaking ball, damn it, try it. That's fine. That's okay. That's the time to do it. Also, I do not understand the Chiefs' philosophy whenever it comes to running the football, because you may have noticed they did draft a running back in the first round. They did overhaul an offensive line with some powerful dudes who are good at run blocking, and then they don't enjoy doing it. They find Jerick McKinnon, who proves when he finally gets on the field that he's actually the best running back in that backfield, at least for this offense, and they don't really use him that much.
And can do it like in a power, just up the gut style. Yeah. Like he's not the speed back who you just toss it to on the outside and see if you can make some guys miss. His best runs are usually just straight ahead, just diving, just kind of cutting his way in between offensive linemen and defenders.
Darrell Williams was active for this game. He didn't touch the ball. I don't know if his toe's not right. If not, why was Derek Gore a healthy scratch? Seriously. You need Michael Burton to run it more often. I don't really care. But whenever your defense, the defense across from you, needs to prove something to you. They just showed the pirouetting back to the line of scrimmage, run around, lob the Travis Kelce touchdown in the corner. I can't believe they lost this football game. But yeah, it would have been perfectly fine to try your off-speed pitch if your fastball is getting absolutely effing shelled. That would be fine with me. But so then they come out. McKinnon takes that handoff. Mahomes does the little RPO and throws it at B.J. Hill. Batted up by B.J. Hill. Caught by B.J. Hill. Wrong Hill. Bengals ball. Great territory.
Hill had a good night.
Big receiving night for Hill.
He also had a sack later in that game.
And that's one that you, like, whenever you see a defensive lineman make a play like that, my inclination at least is to credit them on an incredible play. But if you're Patrick Mahomes and you're making the call in the RPO and you've got a lot of traffic over there, you can just hand it off. But I digress. As they went to commercial on the replay on NFL Network, Travis Kelce was doing a little shoulder shimmy, and then Patrick Mahomes also does the little shoulder shimmy. And I can't believe they lost this football game. Defense is put in a terrible spot there. Whenever they give up 8 points in one possession, they did it because they started in a terrible spot because of a bad drive from the offense that resulted in a turnover. The Chiefs come back out and give them a 3-and-out. 3rd and 3, Mahomes takes a sack, just running around, has time. 3rd and 3, not 3rd and 8. The Bengals drop everybody. Mahomes has all day, can't do anything about it, eventually gets sacked. L'Jarius Sneed gives them the ball right back. And they go 3-and-out again. That was really the first time on that 3rd and 6 where Orlando Brown got worked by Trey Hendrickson. He held up pretty well over the course of the game.
Which there's no shame in that happening one time in a game, right?
Yeah.
If a franchise if the most sacks in a single season of franchise history, if a guy like that beat you once, you've had a pretty good day.
And then you have that last drive we already talked about. You go into overtime in a tie game and you win the toss after what we saw last week. Mahomes floats one over to Demarcus Robinson. Mahomes goes back to Demarcus Robinson. It probably should have been a pick six for Eli Apple. Takes a deep shot to Tyreek Hill. Stealing this one from Seth as well. Didn't even think about this in real time. Seth said, you know what happened there? Tyreek Hill mistime this jump. I think it was Seth that said that actually might have been Patrick Mahomes' best throw of the second half. We can do some theorizing, but I'm going to see if I can get you this stat before we head into the break here. Just for just pain, I guess, because I can't help myself, because none of us can help ourselves. Patrick Mahomes' QBR, which is on a scale of 100, his QBR in the first half was 98. Basically perfect.
Excellent.
Have you seen the stat yet, Rudy?
No.
On a scale of 100, okay, it was a 98 in the first half. Do you want to guess what it was in the second half plus overtime?
I would love to say 69, but that seems too high.
Give it the old college try.
17.
Really try to nail it. 17, lock it in?
17.
How about 1.4?
Oh, my goodness.
I've never seen anything like that from any quarterback ever.
So he had a perfect game. Well, close. 98 plus 1.4.
Would have been a 99.4 total.
Yeah.
If you want to play it that way.
Not bad.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I don't get. I've already made this joke multiple times. I'm not ashamed of repeating a good joke. I don't think that, like, the Illuminati was in the locker room whenever Patrick Mahomes got in there for halftime.
I do.
But if he would have seen, you know, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Tupac, and Elvis, I picked two living people and two maybe living people. If they would have all four of them been in the locker room and said, we are going to ruin you if you win this football game, it would be a better explanation than anything else I have right now. If you want to say that he looked shook after that end of the first half, that's fine. But have you ever seen Patrick Mahomes look rattled? Desperate, maybe. In the Super Bowl last year, he had every excuse to be rattled. But he wasn't really rattled. He was a little frantic. He was all over the place. And he was still hitting his receivers in the face with the football. Twice! And yesterday, it just... Here's the rudest thing I'm going to say. And then we'll take our break, Rudy. On that final play of regulation before they kicked the field goal, that play would have made more sense to watch if he would have been in a blue uniform wearing number 10. Not number 10. That's Eli Manning's number. What number does Daniel Jones wear? 8? He a single-digit guy?
Sure.
Daniel
8 seems
Jones.
right. I think you are right about 8, actually.
Number 8. It would have made... That play looked more like a Daniel Jones play than a Patrick Mahomes play. You've got time. You miss your first look. You get a second one. You freak out. You pirouette. You run around. You get sacked. You lose field goal yardage and a kick that should have been a chip shot. Gets a little sketchy. And you lose the football. And if Joe Tooney wasn't facing the other way, the game ends there. This is not me telling you that Patrick Mahomes is Daniel Jones. This is not me telling you anything other than what I said at the beginning, which is that the Chiefs got a miserable half of football from, hear me, the best quarterback currently living. I believe that as much as I believed it yesterday before all of this.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Not him. I just can't explain it when it looks like what it looked like from the 29.5-minute mark on.
Like Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's nothing to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. Or Daniel Jones, really, for that matter. And it's just a brutal way to lose a football game. Whenever we come back, I'll either talk about the defense or two of my sour grapes that I love to chomp on. We'll figure out one of those directions over the course of this break. We'll come back and talk more Chiefs Bengals, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page.
As a Shane Company jewelry consultant, I get to work with couples looking for their dream engagement ring.
listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
It's like I'm trying to think of a good home repair project to compare the Chiefs to at this point. So, I don't know. We tried the WD-40. We tried the duct tape.
With Joshua Brisco.
Have you tried just hitting that doorknob with a fish?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Got a comment on the Twitch from Iced Pyro saying, how was Pokemon, Josh? Great question, Iced Pyro.
It's you're gonna love it because he's really needed it. Chiefs obviously bad. He needs something to take his mind off of it. So, Josh, I'm happy you got this game.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed it so far, and so I'm excited to hear about your experience with it.
I bought a physical copy of it.
You deserve this.
Thank you, Rudy. I really appreciate that. I bought a physical copy of it, even though I like digital just fine, but I got a physical copy pre-order because it was like $15 cheaper, and I thought, that's fine.
Great deal.
And I knew I was going to be busy this weekend, so did it come out on Friday originally?
Yeah, Friday, yeah.
So I could have played it some on Saturday, but I was playing Sword and Shield some, and
Thursday if you had like an Australian Switch, basically.
Interesting.
You could get it like Thursday at noon.
I could have gone in and
whatever.
changed my Switch settings probably and gotten it Thursday. That would have all been fun. But I knew I was going to be busy all weekend, and so I thought, well, tomorrow's when I'm off because again we got KU tomorrow night, and so I'm gonna really dig into it a lot tomorrow. But I was gonna whenever it arrived today, which was the ETA, which is a little disappointing. I might have even played it last night to get my mind off of things, but But whenever it arrived today, I was gonna take a picture of it and tweet it out, and say this is a good day to remember that it's important to have other hobbies.
Yep.
And so the USPS package tracker says expected to arrive by 9 p.m. tonight, but it doesn't say out for delivery. It says in transit to the next facility, and I haven't gotten any updates in a while. So I don't think it's going to be here today.
Doesn't seem right. I mean, our United States Postal Service system, what's that stand for? Service is pretty much perfect.
Yeah.
They're almost never wrong or bad about things or slow. That doesn't really sound like a government organization.
Yeah, and look, I'm a big fan of the USPS. It is kind of amazing that you can put a little sticker worth 25 cents in the corner of a piece of paper and it's going to be in Dubuque, Iowa in 2 days. That's pretty incredible. I think I'm also holding out a little bit of resentment towards the site that I bought it from because I don't even think that actually shipped until Saturday.
Fair, I made a joke on the USPS. It's probably the site's fault. By probably, I mean almost definitely.
Yeah, and so the last update I got was yesterday at midnight, and it said in transit arriving on time, and then in transit to next facility, and it has not arrived yet. So I was going to, say again that this is why it's important to have other hobbies. And what I'm thinking now is what is important is to have a hobby like knitting or something with no stakes attached and no stress anywhere around so I can just kind of... My new hobby might be sitting in a dark, quiet room and just seeing if that does anything for me.
My new hobby is not to ever have hobbies or enjoyment or happiness.
If you don't have hobbies, they can't hurt you. You don't love... Hey, if you don't love anything, you know what it can't do? Hurt you.
Can't hurt you.
Currently seeing the replay of the AFC Championship game on my TV, and on my computer screen is my tracking number for my Pokemon game that has not arrived.
Good thing I don't love the Chiefs.
Or Pokemon. Or...
It's a dumb game. Josh will hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
You've been talking about how awful it is now for the last couple of days.
It's the worst.
You caught a shiny yet?
No, I haven't got that far. I have not played it since Friday, probably. It was a busy weekend.
Yeah, man.
I was babysitting.
Yeah, that sounds brutal, man.
Hey, I didn't play it over the weekend like you.
That sounds awful that you didn't get to play. You gonna play it tonight, you think? Gonna dig in tonight? Dig in. Dump it, Rudy, dump it. Are you gonna dig in tonight? Why did I say bleep it? I don't know if you have to bleep that or not. You definitely don't have to bleep it out of the podcast.
Well,
I just misspoke.
I hit it, so that's fine. It's never too bad to be, like the opening, right? It doesn't hurt to be a little safe.
You know what I'm going to say? I hope that you dig in to Pokemon tonight, even if I can't, Rudy. And I also want to give my best wishes to the health of Dickie V, voice of college basketball. I was going to mention both of those things, and I slipped up.
lots on my mind. I don't know if I'm gonna play it tonight. Sometimes you can be too stressed to where you just don't even want to enjoy your hobbies. I've had that happen a couple times today.
So that's my Pokemon situation that has not really been the grand oasis that I thought it was going to be. But oh well. Thanks for asking. I'm fine. I will talk about the defense here, I promise. I think the future of this defense is really interesting also. Not that Tyrann Mathieu has never tweeted anything that has been sort of vague or whatever, but he was tweeting today something like along the lines of, I leave grateful for the experience and everything. And his post-game press conference also sounded like the choking up voice of a guy that gave 3 years to this team and was staring down the barrel of not being back next year. I would have the hunch that if there's a chance that he would know. I mean, I legit thought that he was going to get extended before this season. Obviously, that never happened. So I want to talk about the future of the defense a little bit. Let's crunch on some sour grapes here just for a second. I don't want to rub anybody's face in any dirt. I don't want to rub any salt in anybody's wounds. T. Higgins having a huge game in the AFC Championship Game, the 33rd overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft.
Who went before him?
What was that?
Who went before him?
I can't remember. No, I don't want to do the bit because I'm going to actually take this. This is like whenever in biology in school, like your teacher starts using you're using all the very specific terms for your various bits, as I call them. I'm gonna speak in scientific terms here, okay? Just for a second. I think everyone knows that I actually like Brett Veach. I think he's done some really interesting things for this team, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire seems like a lovely dude, and he's had some great carries as the second dude out of this backfield, change of pace guy, whatever.
Credit to rebuilding the offensive line. You don't see a full offensive line get rebuilt one offseason.
Absolutely.
It was impressive.
But Jesse Bates and T. Higgins having two huge moments in this draft really do stink. I remember whenever the Chiefs traded up for Breeland Speaks, like we were talking, Jesse Bates went.
Wake Forest.
How many picks after Breeland Speaks did Jesse Bates go? Like a dozen, less than 10, something like that?
Not much.
We talked about him quite a bit leading up to that draft.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Deacon.
I would have probably taken Michael Pittman Jr. at 32, even over T. Higgins. Those guys went 33 and 34. Whatever. You have these small margins for error, and whenever you miss on big swings because you think you've got something different or you think you can afford a luxury pick, you go for a developmental player, whatever it may be, there are consequences to that. I wasn't complaining about the Chiefs drafting a running back or fearful of that just for the sake of coming up with a bit to be angry about something. The Chiefs needed an extra pass catcher in this game. They've needed it this entire year. This offense has another gear that it's gotten to only whenever it's been able to really hone in on Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. The Bengals took a nuclear approach to slowing those guys down. And in a bunch of ways yesterday, the Chiefs were met with the consequences of their actions, and we shouldn't be that surprised.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco
If you don't make your cheek pink, you're not staying awake.
Exactly.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I thought I might never laugh again. And then, then I heard Matt Derrick say, if you don't make your cheeks pink, you're not staying awake. Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. We got Monday Almost Entirely Sports' back again. Maybe we'll get Matt back on Mondays. We got him here tonight at the very least because we just needed to. I need to unpack some things, Matt. I need you to tell me where I'm being fair, where I'm being unfair. I need you to tell me how to feel. I need you to tell me what the bleep happened.
I'll do my best, but I have to tell you, my cheeks are not pink because I don't need to stay awake. So,
What's the point then? What's the point of doing anything if your cheeks aren't pink?
I mean, this is the time of year where I'm all prepared to go to bed at 9 o'clock and sleep in for 12 hours. I mean, I can't quite do that yet, but it's getting to be that time.
I think you got that little window between the end of the Chiefs season and free agency and all that. That's whenever it's bedtime, and I'll try not to make you do this show at 9. I'll try to keep this 8 o'clock hour open for you and just see how that fits your schedule with your nightgown and your long hat and your candle that we have already confirmed that you do wear to bed every night.
That I'm dressed up like I'm Scrooge.
Yes. But to be fair, again, I imagine that everyone sleeps that way, even though no one that I actually know ever does. It's just what I envision. So Matt, right now on NFL Network, I just watched Samaje Perine house a touchdown there. That was pretty unpleasant. A lot of this game was unpleasant from about this point on. I pick a spot to start. I mentioned that touchdown. I mean that's a bad spot. It was a bad play. If Charvarius Ward makes a good play there, this game might feel different. That's just the one that's on TV in front of me. I don't think that's the play of the game. But where do you begin in your Chiefs 2021 season autopsy?
Well, I'm here for you. I feel like I'm the therapist here. So I don't know if it's fair for me to pick a topic for you to start with. I mean, maybe we should ask where it hurts for you, Josh.
So here's what I've said in my kind of overarching thing. I think there are plenty of specific little things we could pick at very fairly. What hurts me is that Patrick Mahomes was not very good at football for like 31 minutes, and I don't like seeing that. It's like seeing your teacher at school or something. I wouldn't know because I was homeschooled, but it's like seeing Mall Santa 45 minutes after he's done being Santa, just walking around a Hot Topic and grabbing a T-shirt. You're not supposed to see that.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good analogy. I can't really fight with that. Because it certainly seems like something happened at halftime. I don't know what it was, but something seemed to change because the Chiefs made zero adjustments. And if anything, they seemed to get into this pattern of just trying to push the ball, which, and best I can describe it is that they were kind of in the mood that this was a title fight, and they were just going for a knockout punch. And there wasn't any need to because you had the Bengals on the ropes. All you need to do was just keep working the body, and you were going to win a game. But they just kept trying to throw a haymaker, and you can't do that. I mean, all you need to do is the Bengals to dodge a couple of bullets and them themselves work themselves out of the corner that they were in. And that's exactly what they did. And I don't know what changed. I mean, the Bengals certainly you look at the numbers. I mean, they just dropped 8 and rushed 3 most of the second half. I mean, not most. I think it was like 45%, but that was enough. And even on some of the key plays, you look at it, and I'm like, okay, well, there's 3 guys rushing. There's 8 people in coverage. Why is there no one short? I mean, it's like everybody's in the end zone waiting for a football. There's 8 guys back there. That's not going to work. I mean, when teams are doing that, you got to take advantage of what's in front of you. And the Chiefs did that in the first half, and they stopped doing it in the second half. And I can't entirely explain why, other than it wasn't entirely Patrick Mahomes. I don't think it was entirely Andy Reid. I don't think it was entirely Eric Bieniemy. But I think there's a lot of blame to go around.
Yeah. You beat me to the question on that, which is where do you start? Is it Mahomes? Is it Andy Reid? Is it Bieniemy? And I think your answer to that question was just going to be yes. So it can be shared some amount of the split there, I suppose. And like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill had their bad plays, and the offensive line that generally I think played pretty well through a chunk of the game at least, and some of that time it was against 3 pass rushers. They had their bad moments, and I don't know that much of anybody played a perfect game here. But you mentioned halftime. Like, that is maybe it's arbitrary, but that's the line in the sand in this game where you have the end of the first half just end on a disaster. And then I would have been less surprised if Patrick Mahomes would have come out for the second half with a third arm than coming out and playing the way that he did. He looked rattled. He looked uncertain. Like you said, they looked like they were trying to throw haymakers whenever just a few more body blows would have done the job. I don't understand that.
I can't quite explain it either. I don't know what got into the offense other than that they just felt like there was this tremendous amount of confidence in the first half when they literally could do almost nothing wrong. I mean, until the end of the half. And even then, I mean, that was self-inflicted wounds at the goal line. I mean, that was not anything that the Bengals were particularly doing. I mean, did they guard Travis Kelce over the middle and take away the one throw that Mahomes was looking to make? Yeah, but that was one of the more poorer goal line calls I think the Chiefs have ever put in. And the fact that Andy Reid even said after the game, I should have called a different play, tells you a lot about that play. But I mean, like I said, that was the only time the Chiefs were stopped in the entire first half was them stopping themselves.
Yep.
And then, and the second half, it's like, where did it happen? Now I could certainly say and give plenty of credit to the Bengals because I can imagine the Bengals locker room at halftime was, we just got this score. We're within 11. We've done it to these guys before. We're going to do it again. And I can see the momentum completely shifting to their side of the football. But at the same time, I mean, it was, and that's the frustrating thing, I think, certainly for the Chiefs and the Chiefs fans, is that it wasn't one play. There were dozens of moments in the second half where you make one play. It didn't come down to just that goal line stand at the end. I mean, that was not it. I mean, there were moments throughout that entire second half where you pick up a conversion here or you catch a ball there. I mean, you don't throw an interception here. I mean, it was just these mistakes over and over again where if you make just one of those plays, you probably get away.
So people should go read this at ChiefsDigest.com, and not just for the headline, which is one of those headlines that you begrudgingly respect through the pain of grim finish. It's good. I mean, it was good work, Matt, but also really rude of you. But you go through 5 missed opportunities there, and I'm sure you did more editing than filling to fill out that list. Like that is the thing like that you just laid out. I mean, you could find so many moments in this game where, not to pick on Charvarius Ward from the play that I just saw, but like if Charvarius Ward sticks that tackle, this game is different. If they score at the end of the first half, this game is different. If Travis Kelce catches that pass that goes off his fingertips, if they score certainly a touchdown on that last drive of regulation, if Tyreek Hill times his jump differently in overtime, if Nick Bolton makes a great sliding interception, if you could find a million of them. You mentioned a few in this story, and different issues that they were struggling through, ChiefsDigest.com. And it makes it hard to even know where to begin, obviously, because we began 8 minutes ago and we're still beginning now. And it also makes me have a hard time finding where to point for something to fix, because it's just all it ends up feeling very vague and non-specific because there is so much.
Yeah, and some of the things that I was looking at last night, and that things that broke down, some of them were things that just happened over and over again that were just examples. I mean, we talk about the Chiefs not maybe running the football enough. I know
Sure.
You're probably not.
For this, I'll happily restate my case on this just because I do want newcomers to know. I think the NFL generally, and specifically the Chiefs, should run the ball less in neutral situations whenever you have a quarterback and a more efficient way of moving the ball. Teams should throw the ball more than they do. I don't think there's a particular value in running the ball for the sake of doing it. If all you're seeing is 3-man pass rushes and sub packages that are daring you to throw the ball deep, please hand it to Derrick McKinnon for 7. I beg you, even I.
Yes, and what I think they ran the ball, with the running backs 9 times in the second half. They had a couple of Cole Hardman runs, and probably a 1 or 2 times that Mahomes actually got past the line of scrimmage and didn't just dance behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah,
but that's not enough. I mean, when you're up 11 points. That's not enough, and it wasn't necessarily that they weren't being called. It was just that there were a lot of RPOs that Mahomes gets into that mode where he's like, okay, no, I'm going to pass this. If I get the option to pass, I'm going to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And there were plenty of those that he just stood and stuck it on the ground, give it to McKinnon, gotten the yards, and he just banked it. And and the Chiefs were being some tricky at times. I've had a couple of different explanations for the DeMarcus Robinson interception. I don't know what was happening on that play. I mean, it was an RPO. It looked like the one option was a screen to DeMarcus Robinson. Whatever it was poorly designed as either a run or a screen, whichever one it was. It was whatever it was supposed to be. It didn't work. And once again, the option for Patrick Mahomes should have just been, we're grounding this football. I'm going to throw it at the feet of DeMarcus Robinson, and that's it. And that, once again, I mean, that was a common mistake from Mahomes yesterday. There were more than one occasion where he should have just simply gotten rid of the football, and it doesn't. He's trying to make a play, and that's a fine line. I get it, because this quarterback is special. He can hold on to the football, and he can do some crazy things from time to time. But, and I probably inartfully worded this question to Andy Reid last night because he kind of didn't bite on it or anything. And it wasn't trying to get him to bite or get got you. But it's just that there's been a correlation in his career that when Mahomes spends a lot of time during a game, not just a play, because we've seen, I mean, there's a single play that he makes, like the Travis Kelce touchdown that I think took almost 8 seconds before he gets rid of the football. One play is not a bad thing, but when Patrick Mahomes gets to the point where it's like running 500 yards behind the line of scrimmage, like he did in the Super Bowl against the Bucs, and like he did in the loss last year against the Raiders, and I haven't seen how many amount of yards he put up yesterday, but it was a lot. When he gets to those modes, it's usually because he's seeing some defenses that are exactly what the Bengals did, that are not favorable for throwing the football, and two, he's just not making smart decisions. And you saw that in spades in the second half again. Yeah.
The one thing on the RPO front, and that's something that I wonder if that's going to take hold a little bit this offseason and how we talk about the offense, because I mean, Andy Reid is not a guy that generally speaking, especially if you go back to Philadelphia, like you will find that fan bases want him to call more running plays, especially in Philly and especially before Patrick Mahomes. Having Patrick Mahomes and letting Patrick Mahomes go around and make plays, like you said, it's a fine line. You criticizing Patrick Mahomes for trying to make plays too often sort of feels like criticizing Andy Reid for being too cute in the red zone 45 minutes after Nick Allegretti catches a touchdown and Travis Kelce throws for one, right? Like part of that is just some of the side effects that come with the medication. But the specifics of, hey man, just let Derrick McKinnon or Clyde Edwards-Helaire just take this ball on an RPO, or just call a run play whenever you are seeing this from your defense. I wonder if there's anything there, because I mentioned this in the first hour. I've been genuinely confused by what the Chiefs' philosophy is with the running game, because they do spend a first-round pick on a running back. Could have had T. Higgins. But they do spend a first-round pick on a running back that they valued, and presumably as a pass catcher, even though that part of his game hasn't really blossomed, so to speak. They overhaul this offensive line that, yes, of course, protects Patrick Mahomes, but also there are some road graders out there. Like, especially if you even look at them, going and getting Lucas Niang, who obviously hasn't been playing. But some of the guys they choose, Orlando Brown comes out of Baltimore, where he is a menace on the ground, and they did a good job protecting Patrick Mahomes over the course of the season by and large. But there's a strength and an investment in the running game that it doesn't seem like they enjoy using whenever defenses are daring them to, which is exactly when they should be using it. I'm left genuinely confused in that regard as well.
Well, and you know what? If you would like to see the glass as half full, I mean, let's face it. I mean, this was a Chiefs team that completely and totally had to rebuild its offensive line, and still came within one quarter away, whatever you want to call it.
3 yards
from a Super Bowl. 3 yards away.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe 1 yard away from a Super Bowl.
Yep.
So I mean, that in itself is pretty remarkable. But I also think that that in itself, to me, kind of signifies that this was a little bit of a retooling year. I'm not going to say rebuilding, because it certainly wasn't a rebuilding year for the Chiefs, but it was a retooling year because they completely changed up their offensive line. They brought in Derrick McKinnon, tried to figure out what to do with him, and I don't know if you, and you say, and you make the great point, which is that you don't know what this offense running plan is. Part of it is that it's a work in progress. Mm-hmm. I mean, is this a zone running team or a gap running team? I don't know, because they do both.
Yeah,
and most teams don't. I mean, most teams stick with one blocking scheme, and that's what they do. But the Chiefs have probably in Clyde Edwards-Helaire a guy who's probably better suited to gap, running behind a gap blocking.
It seems like they have a back and an offensive line that is better suited for a gap scheme, and they run a bunch of zone. Like, it's confusing.
Well, because that's what Andy Reid does.
That's what Andy Reid does, right? Sure.
And
right.
Then they finally put Derrick McKinnon in there, who is kind of I think a better zone.
Yeah, I would agree.
Running back. So I mean, that's why I said, I mean, it's kind of to me a transition year, because you just don't know. I don't think they really ever had a great plan for what they were trying to get accomplished in the run game, other than they were just going to run the football every once in a while because they need to do that.
Right, and that actually is probably the thing that makes me the most sad, is that running the ball, because it's something you got to do, but what are you doing it with a purpose? Like, again, I don't understand every element of it. I don't want to pretend that I do, but I have an undying amount of respect for Kyle Shanahan's offense and what he's able to do on the ground. And it seems like some of those things, like it is purposeful. That man has a plan, and he is going to blow you off the ball with Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle and some running back that's just back there taking the ball and punishing you for it. But it just, I mean, like you said, it's like an obligatory handoff here and there, and I don't think that's done any good for the Chiefs' offense. Before we spend a little time on the defense, I'm curious if you think there's going to be a substantive change on the offensive side. I think everybody that I've talked to thinks that the pass catchers are going to get adjusted, right? McCole Hardman's got another year on his rookie deal. Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce aren't going anywhere. I think Byron Pringle at least deserves a roster spot, because he can also do special team stuff and has proven himself to have some value as a pass catcher, certainly. But then you also have some openings and some guys like DeMarcus Robinson who are on the one-year deal again, all of that. There's that element of it for me, and then there's everything else. Is Eric Bieniemy going to be the offensive coordinator next year? What if he doesn't get a head coaching job? Is anything going to be seriously adjusted? What is your best guess right now?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it begs the question, because Andy today was not exactly forceful from this process, saying that this staff was sticking together. I mean,
yeah,
he seemed to be expressing a lot of doubt, and it's certainly to be understandable, because hey, there's a lot of guys that have some ambitions on that staff. I mean, even on down the road. I mean, Greg Lewis doesn't want to be a wide receiver position coach or running backs coach the rest of his career. He wants to be an offensive coordinator. And, if he's got an opportunity to move up, maybe he moves on. Mike Kafka wants to be an offensive coordinator. If he's blocked here, maybe he interviews somewhere. But Eric Bieniemy in particular, I mean, I see a guy that in Kansas City is honestly, I mean, as long as he's in Andy Reid's shadow, I don't think he's going to get the dude that he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be too many people that will continue, I think, to give him all the blame when things go wrong and not give him a lot of the credit when things go right. And if he wants a head coaching job at the NFL level, maybe he does need to go somewhere else. Maybe if he doesn't get a head coaching job, maybe he needs to go be an offensive coordinator for somebody else, have an associate head coach title and show that he can do this somewhere else. If that's the stumbling block, if that's what teams are telling him is that, we just don't know if you're a product of Andy Reid's system or not. Maybe you need to go prove yourself somewhere else. I mean, there's a lot of questions there, and our understanding is that EB was only on a 1-year contract, so certainly that's a
I forgot about that. You're right.
The assumption was this was going to be his last year anyway. So
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of options in the air, but Andy. I mean, we know there's some people leaving. Like Matt House has already announced was leaving and everything. So it certainly seems like that. At least his understanding is that there's some other guys maybe considering their future too.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the Bieniemy contract thing. Wow. Yeah, all right, that's interesting. I saw somebody tweet about how does he want to go do it in Buffalo and see if he could get the keys to the Josh Allen train and see if he can ride that to a head coaching spot. He might have to go do it for a new head coach somewhere, like you said, where he has to. I mean, and again, look, on some level, this is all silly because these are things that Doug Peterson and Matt Nagy didn't have to do, and they did it at not as a successful level, but they also did it with not as overwhelming a quarterback, and maybe there's something in the interviews, and maybe I don't know what all is at play there, but it seems like it could be a wild offseason for a team that has not had a whole lot of turnover except for whenever guys leave to go be head coaches. What about on the defensive side? It's funny because I think a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth about the defense not being able to do anything on that possession in overtime, but also they gave up 24 points to the Bengals in regulation, and I don't think I have met a single person that wouldn't have signed up for that before the game kicked off.
Yeah, I mean, really, as much grief as I think maybe the Chiefs' defense got early in the season and even at the tail end of the season when they were giving up some points, I mean, part of it's because of their, last 5 games. 3 of them were against Buffalo and the Cincinnati.
Yep.
I mean, 2 absolutely explosive offenses. And you're right. I mean, the defense did just enough to win both those games. You're right. I mean, if you had told me that they were going to hold the Bengals to 24 points in regulation, Chiefs were going to the Super Bowl as far as I was concerned.
Absolutely.
No way that wasn't going to be enough.
Yep.
So I don't put a ton of blame on them. At the same time, there were things that popped up yesterday that were, once again, kind of the things that have, belabored this defense at times. Missed tackles. Breakdowns in maybe communication, breakdowns in coverage. I mean, the examples were there yesterday. There's no doubt. I mean, as good as this defense played for about 12 weeks, it's not perfect. There's things to be fixed, and there are probably a lot of the same questions that you have on the defensive side too. I mean, you've got a couple of key free agents. You got a couple of decisions that you need to make on some guys. Beyond that, just from a contract standpoint, there probably will be. I would not even be surprised if there wasn't more turnover on the defensive side of the football, and coaching staff too. I mean, I don't know if there's anything that necessarily guarantees that side of the football is going to be completely intact.
So if I tell you defensively, let's go personnel first on the defensive side. Tyrann Mathieu at the podium last night sounded like a guy who had been thinking about the fact that this could be his last game with the Chiefs, right? He has a tweet today that he says he's leaving grateful of what he's been able to do in Kansas City, that very well could have been him leaving the season, right? He's also said he's going to go play in the Pro Bowl and something along the lines of, go represent Kansas City in the Pro Bowl. I don't want to pretend that is a final word from Tyrann Mathieu, but you have all of that from him. You have Frank Clark, whose cap hit next year is huge, who had a nice resurgence in the middle of this season, but that was sort of the story. On a different level, you have Melvin Ingram, who's on a 1-year deal, and we'll see what happens there. You have Anthony Hitchens, who has some movable money, and they've invested in that linebacker position and two young dudes who look really good there, and Willie Gay and Nick Bolton. Purely from that personnel standpoint, what if you had to start predicting the future of some of those guys? Plus, Charvarius Ward is a free agent. Like, just of that group, how much of that do you expect to see look different next year?
There's a lot.
A lot.
Because you're talking about, players that there's some tough decisions. Charvarius Ward's going to be a great one because I think the Chiefs would love to have him back at the right price, but what's the right price and what will the market bear? I could certainly see that the way he's played, that there's a team that might be willing to pay more than the Chiefs will. Mm-hmm. Frank Clark's a player I think that the Chiefs actually would like to have back, but at his salary cap number, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Something's going to have to give on that. Anthony Hitchens probably the same way. I think that the Chiefs would love to have him back too, but what is Anthony Hitchens at this point? Based on what we saw at the end of the season, Anthony Hitchens is a backup. That's where he's at his age and it certainly with what the Chiefs have. I think that they are absolutely at this point would be insanely crazy not to go into next year with Nick Bolton as their Mike linebacker. He just seems too prepared for it.
And he's young and he's cheap, which are part of the logic of that draft pick is it'll free us up to move on from Anthony Hitchens next year. Yeah.
And if you don't move on to Anthony Hitchens, it's because you're getting him at a reduced price. There's some other, there's decisions across the board. Melvin Ingram's going to be a really interesting one too, because I think that's another guy the Chiefs would love to have back. But remember, he didn't sign with the Steelers until, was it May? It was really late in the process, and the rumblings at the time were that last year he wanted a deal significantly higher than what he settled for, and if that's the case, Melvin Ingram might be waiting again until May. And can you wait until May to make a decision on Melvin Ingram? That's just one of the things that Brett Veach is going to have to consider. They've got a lot of things, and then you throw in the salary cap part of it too, because right now, as far as what the Chiefs have committed salary-wise, they're over the cap. It's just where they are. There's going to have to be some cap decisions made regardless. And some of that's built in. They're going to probably move around, money with Mahomes, and they can do it with some other guys, Chris Jones, et cetera. It's not do or die.
Mm-hmm.
They've built these contracts in a way that
they're not the Saints.
They'll be fine. They're not the same.
Right.
But then again, they're not just a team that's in a position to go out willy-nilly.
Right.
You're paying regardless, when you got a quarterback hit like Chris Jones or like Patrick Mahomes, and you got a hit like Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, whatever I'm talking about. It's almost like bedtime, Josh.
I know. I kept you up too late.
You're always going to have some cap problems, but no, it's not like you're right. It's not like it's the same. It's not like that they're cash strapped and can only offer Melvin Ingram, some money that they found under under that penthouse sofa upstairs at Arrowhead.
Right. Although I would be curious to know how much money is under there. You should really dig under there next time you're up.
I'm afraid to stick my hand under there.
Yeah, rightfully so. Rudy, can we mark that one just to forget the context of that later? I'd appreciate that. You can cut out all the stuff about the couch. We don't need any of that. That's not important.
Don't need that.
So, there's going to be turnover defensively, personnel-wise. I've got a way of combining these two questions. We'll see if you beat me to the punch. But the easiest thing to do for an angry fan base ever is to fire a coordinator. We just talked about Eric Bieniemy leaving, and I think right now, over the course of literally 1 week, you might get Chiefs fans who were ready to give him the head coaching job of any other team in football to, I saw at least one tweet saying that Andy Reid should be demoted to offensive coordinator and Eric Bieniemy can be the new head coach. I did not reply to that tweet, but I saw it. I swear it's real.
That's humorous.
It's certainly, you got to think outside of the box sometimes, and that's what Twitter's good for. You could see the swinging there from Eric Bieniemy. On Steve Spagnuolo, he had the greatest defensive turnaround in regular season NFL history, and now he's a bum. But trying to find the middle ground somewhere in that swinging pendulum, What would you do if you're the Chiefs right now? If you're looking at that defense, if you're going to have some turnover anyway, if you did have a chance to give a call to a Vic Fangio or someone else who's currently back out on the market after maybe fizzling out as a head coach, which is what Spags did, to be clear. Like, that's a relatively similar thing. But also that would come at the cost of maybe redoing your coaching staff on the defensive side, perhaps a different or new system. I want to put all of it out there and let you tell me what you think is likely to happen and what you think makes sense.
And maybe I'm projecting a little of Andy Reid's loyalty into this. I'm probably along those same lines too. I mean, I wouldn't fire anybody unless they needed to be fired. I mean, hey, let's face it. I mean, Reid probably went at least 1 year longer than most people would have gone with Bob Sutton.
Yep.
At this point,
and it hurt him.
Has Steve Spagnuolo done anything to deserve to be fired?
I'm
not sure about that.
I would say if I had to give you a genuine answer, I would say that I don't know how much I trust him to know whenever it's time for certain players like Dan Sorensen or your Ben Niemans or whatever in favor of putting a young guy out there. I don't know if that's a fireable offense. That would be my best answer if I had to give you one.
Yeah, and if I'm Andy Reid and you're coming to me and giving me that, I can't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, you do have to weigh that, but then again, there's plenty of bad calls that people make around the league, and like I said, I'm probably projecting a little bit of what I think Andy Reid would do because Andy is loyal to his guys, and Steve, and look how Bob Sutton wasn't necessarily one of his guys. I mean, he only worked with him here in KC, and he was pretty loyal to him. His relationship with Steve Spagnuolo goes back much longer than that. So I have a hard time seeing it, and I have a hard time seeing that there's a case to be made to make it a significant improvement necessarily by making a change there. I mean, I still think that you're probably at a point where you're trying to find the right mix of players, and I'm not sure defensively that they still have maybe the perfect mix of players.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's a lot easier to fire a coach than it is to replace a roster, and so that's what people would rather do if they have one magic bullet to shoot. But obviously, we know that's not really how that works. And also, I mean, we're not even talking about a defensive meltdown being the reason that they're eliminated. Right. It was the offense, but rightfully so. Nobody wants to cut Patrick Mahomes, right? It's just, I think for me, again, that's where this game becomes so inexplicable and frustrating, is that I'm watching Patrick Mahomes on the replay on NFL Network right now just look like a dude that I've never seen wear 15 for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, these decisions, sometimes we look at if you're looking at it just purely as a number standpoint, and you're looking at it on paper. I mean, what's wrong with Steve Spagnuolo? I mean, he certainly seems like he's getting generally the job done. I mean, look at where they finished the season. Yeah. I mean, they're a top 10 scoring defense,
and doing it with a group of, I was gonna say average talent-wise roster defensively. It's probably below average when the pass rush isn't getting there. I don't know if you can make that kind of judgment, but that's what I would point to. Corners that they've invested a great load of nothing in. Safeties that they did invest in, but that has been defined by the third of those safeties. I do agree with those things. I can't look away from the TV screen in here and watching it fill me with shame. And that's actually the one that I'm looking at myself on for the video stream. It has nothing to do with the shame of Chiefs Bengals. Let me ask you this, and then we'll let you go, Matt. Right now, both in terms of Chiefs Bengals and in that game, and also now from this point forward, looking ahead to next season, to this offseason, what were and what are the Chiefs lacking?
Once again, I mean, I think that this is grading on a tremendous curve because, I mean, Chiefs were once again that close to being Super Bowl champions. So, to me, saying that they need certain things, it's like, well, you know what? There's a lot of teams that need two of whatever the Chiefs need.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. I still think that the Chiefs need a different wide receiver.
I agree.
I think that they need someone who, has some elevation. And whether that means that there's somebody who's 6'4" and can run, or 6'1" and can jump, I'm sort of describing Sammy Watkins, but I mean they need somebody that's different than Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
That can line up outside, be a foil, do some things that they can't do. I mean, honestly, I mean, in some ways maybe they just need somebody that's tough too. I mean, Albert Wilson used to do a lot of the dirty stuff for this team. I mean, and he brought something that I don't think that they currently have a handle on this team right now. So a different wide receiver, particularly, like I said, somebody that's got some size, speed, bulk, whatever it is, just different than what they currently have. Certainly, if you look at just what's on paper for this team right now, they need an edge rusher because, and I say that under the assumption that with Melvin Ingram not under contract and Frank Clark at a number that you can't bring back at that number, there's going to be some changes there. So that's absolutely, whether it's draft, whether it's free agency or both, that's going to be on your list. Cornerback, I mean, once again, Tavares Ward, not under contract. You need another corner. I mean, if this season proves anything, it's that, the Chiefs have 3 corners, but that's Ward, Snead, and Fenton, and you got a chance of losing one of them. And if you had to go to Ward next year with Mike Hughes or DeAndre Baker as one of your full-time starters, are you ready to do that?
No.
I
wasn't sure if that was rhetorical. I figured I would answer it for you. No.
Yeah.
I would not be good with that.
Yeah. Good thing is that you don't need any offensive line help. I mean, if anything, you can always look for some affordable depth, but you got your starters there. Regardless, I mean, right tackle might be a question mark for an upgrade, but still think the Chiefs were probably pretty reasonably happy with what they have at the prices that they have right now. Other than that, I mean, I think you're looking to upgrade a few spots and you're looking to get some depth. I mean, linebacker will probably be one of those spots. Safety will probably be one of those spots. You may be looking for a starter at safety, depending on what happens with Tyrann Mathieu, since he's not under contract right now. There's a few places. It's not like this team is needing to go out and get 6 starters. I mean, you're talking about just reloading at a couple of positions.
Yeah.
And once again, I mean, we're talking about offensively the difference between having a different type of wide receiver is just the difference between maybe averaging 6.5 yards a play versus 6.8 yards a play.
Right.
I mean, that's that little difference can make a big difference at particular moments of the game.
Yeah, that little tiny element that we spend months talking about in the offseason, the one thing that made me feel a little more sane, I guess, is that we have seen some of those small margins play out negatively now, and it makes you wonder, what if they did get that receiver, if it was Juju in the offseason or Odell Beckham in season or someone they would have drafted or whatever. If they do get a little more help on the pass rush, that maybe somebody does bring down Joe Burrow, what does that look like? But those are the things that fuel offseason conversations. And the good thing now, Matt, is that we have absolutely nothing but time, because sweltering days in St. Joe still feel quite a ways away.
Well, and to me, I'm just circling the beginning of the new league year so we can all celebrate Happy New Year at 3 p.m. on March whatever it is. At some point in my life, I will start celebrating that like it's really New Year's.
We should do that.
We should shoot off fireworks and all sorts of stuff.
Yes, we should do that. We should get some fireworks and some champagne and some party poppers and all of that. And we should really celebrate the new league year, whenever that comes out at 3 p.m.
Let's go down to Union Station and do what they do for like the kids. Noon on New Year's Eve. We'll do that at 3 p.m. in the middle of March.
We've got to be able to get somebody to sponsor this. I feel like the media member turnout would be near 100%. We just need something to celebrate in the middle of March. I mean, that's good for everybody. I'll be there, man.
All
right, wearing your full Scrooge nightcap and nightgown and holding your candle. Thank you, Matt.
Exactly. Thanks, Josh.
Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Go read his piece on what went wrong in this game at ChiefsDigest.com. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. A few things from that we'll talk about whenever we come back.
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810 WHB. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
The Chiefs are pork butts. There's a floor to pork butts. They're hard to screw up. You know they're going to be good on some level, but you need a good rub or even a good barbecue sauce after it's cooked to spice it up a little. Andy Reid is slow and steady, just like that 9-pound pork butt they've been smoking all night in the Arrowhead parking lot.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I want to talk about a few things that Matt Derrick floated out to us last segment here on Almost Entirely Sports. Thanks for being with us tonight. Joshua Brisco and Rudy Salazar with you here. I'm both of them, actually, believe it or not. That's one thing that you don't actually know unless you watch on Twitch. But I am Joshua Brisco, and also, hold on.
Rudy Salazar.
It's incredible, isn't it?
The alter ego.
You might say, it seems like you talk over yourself quite a bit, but actually, I'm a
It's
very
a skill.
skilled ventriloquist.
How do you think we're always on the same page? One person.
Exactly. That's a great point, Rudy.
Thank
Wink.
you, Josh. Wink.
We are in sync like the Chiefs offense
Might truly be the dumbest bit we've ever done on this show.
in the second half of the AFC Championship Game.
My brain doesn't work. That's why there's two personalities. One brain stops working, the other one, it's not working just fine, but it's functioning.
Yeah, and an important thing to note is that also all of the things that Rudy says, being me also still, because I'm also Rudy, do not necessarily reflect the opinions of me, Josh. They're two distinctly different characters.
Completely different people.
But the same.
In one body.
Talking to Matt, this hit me looking at the Chiefs roster for next year. If they, don't bring back Melvin Ingram, if they do cut Frank Clark, Alex Okafor is a free agent. He barely came back this year. The Chiefs are going to hit the beginning of the league year, I think, with Mike Dana and Joshua Kando, I think, being maybe not just their starting defensive ends, but perhaps their only defensive ends. Tim Ward is like a jet, right?
You're forgetting about, yeah. Yeah. I kind of miss Tim Ward.
Yeah, me too.
You're forgetting about star defensive end Chris Jones.
Right.
They don't bring back Melvin Ingram. I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Should have signed Melvin Ingram in the first place.
Yeah, I just don't know why you wouldn't at this point.
That was the only reason I was hurt about the trade at the time. I wasn't hurt, but I was like, I just wish they wish they would have brought him in at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm. He should just be back.
He should.
There's no reason for him not to be. He was.
It would be the same reason, which would be that the cap is not in a very good place for some of these choices. And also, they really need somebody who can be like an excellent edge for several years, which is what we know what that costs. That costs you a first and more and $100 million, and that's what they sent for Frank Clark, and he's not lived up to that deal,
Yeah, I do hope, and this isn't. It's not the ideal situation, but I don't think it's also necessarily a terrible situation. Obviously, you have Mike Dana, you have Kando, who didn't do a ton obviously this year due to injuries, but early on was getting snaps, which surprised us, right? It wasn't necessarily that he was taking the world by fire in those snaps, but it was just like, oh, he is getting on the field. So he's clearly doing something in practice to showing some skill. If they do bring back Melvin Ingram, and I would assume spend a early draft pick, or maybe it's just even trading another first round pick for another veteran pass rusher. I don't know if there's a Frank Clark out there this year. Point being, I prefer the first round pick because it's just gonna be cheaper. Mm-hmm. I'm not thrilled about that defensive end room, but also it's not the worst in the world.
It's just that there's 5 positions that I'd like that first round pick to be used on. It's Matt says they don't have to replace 6 starters, and that's largely true. But you've got 2 defensive end spots right now that are unknown. You have 1 safety spot that is unknown, a starting safety spot, plus your number 3 safety, which is a thing that this defense obviously uses plenty.
Sorensen is a free agent. My guess is he will be back until the end of time.
Probably.
But he is technically a free agent right now.
But counting him and Tyrann Mathieu as free agents, you've got 2 safeties there that are 1 huge starter, 1 borderline starter, 2 defensive ends, 1 cornerback being Charvarius Ward. Their interior is the defensive line is pretty good. Anthony Hitchens is your at least 3rd linebacker, at least. That is actually 6 just on the defensive side right now.
Now I think you can knock that down to 5 because we both know there is no way in hell they're spending a first 2-day draft pick on a cornerback.
That
They
probably
will
not.
draft one,
But-
but no earlier than the 4th.
But just in pure terms of like how
Yeah.
many like high level role players are they going to look for a replacement for? If you wanted to knock off Hitchens because that's going to be more Nick Bolton, I'm willing to like hear you out on that. But we right now are talking about this team having maybe half new starters next year if they were to completely overhaul that. Plus, right now Orlando Brown Jr. is not under contract. I believe, I do not know this for a fact, I believe that he will be franchise tagged if something is not done by the start of the league year. I do not, and I think that they would have him play under that if that's what it takes. I don't think he would hold out for that, but I think ultimately they get a long-term deal done. But that's even more money to put in this offensive line to extend into the future. I mean, you need another receiver. You need a starting caliber receiver. We might legit be talking about 6 or 7 starters.
Yeah, no, I mean you're totally right. Like the offense doesn't need a lot added to it. I would like to see. I expect Orlando Brown's gonna be back in some form, just because
I think he has.
You
to
gave
be.
him a first round pick. You're pretty much tied to him, right?
Yeah.
And also he played well. There were some struggles early on, some struggles that were overrated.
He played
but there
well
were some
and got
struggles.
better.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he got better as the year went on. I want Orlando Brown back,
Yep.
and it's easier to have again your left tackle and your left guard making a ton of money. I feel like I've said this a billion times.
Mm-hmm.
When the center through right tackle, in theory, assuming it is Lucas Niang, next year, are making nothing, right?
Right.
That makes it easier.
Yep.
I also do like the idea of going after Juju Smith-Schuster in large part because obviously Odell is also a free agent. He's a better player than Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't think that's a bold take.
I think it might be an arguable one, or at least in terms of investments at this point in their career.
Well, so the thing-
1-year deal versus a 2, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think Odell is better. Juju is cheaper, younger, and has more football in front of him.
Yeah,
right.
And,
so
and better at TikTok, which is huge.
Yeah, it's very big. You can absolutely make the argument why you would prefer Juju. It's why I would prefer Juju.
Sure.
And I think that's a spot where you can kind of offset some of that money. I'd also draft a receiver. Doesn't necessarily have to be first round for me. We've just seen the last 2-3 years in the NFL, the amount of guys that get drafted in that second round that become not just solid NFL receivers, but stars, like studs. I'm fine with spending. If they decided to go defensive end in that first round, or God forbid a corner, it's not happening, obviously.
Or if they drafted an alien from outer space,
yeah,
sure,
but
all plausible.
But if it's a second round pick, I'm not gonna. I think in years past I'd be like, hey, well, you know what, you might not have gotten elite talent, but just the last 2-3 years have shown us just. The amount of receivers that are being kicked out of college
they're
right
out
now
here
is
making
absurd.
wide receivers right now.
It is.
Yes.
Like every draft right now is just 8 deep. 8 deep of not just like solid players, but like guys. Where you look at Chase Claypool was like the 7th best receiver in his class, was a tight end in college. I think if I remember right, some people were talking about liked him with the Chiefs as like an H-back, and that dude's a guy. Like, he is a guy out there.
Do you want to hear one insane thing that I'm going to float? And then, do we need to take another break this hour?
Probably.
Okay, that's fine. I've got one other little topic before we get to Seth that I want to get to. But here's my one little floater thing. I just saw this report several weeks ago. I forgot about it. I remembered it now. I believe he's going into the last year of his rookie contract, and so it makes it not the greatest time to buy. You're buying with draft picks and then also contracts. But I did see a tweet that Calvin Ridley wants out of Atlanta.
I did forget about that.
I know.
I like him.
I mean, can you imagine?
I like him.
Can you imagine?
That's a dude I would trade a first round pick for. I'd be all right with that.
I think
the Rams are in the Super Bowl, and they haven't had a first round pick in 30 years.
Oh, can you imagine Calvin Ridley and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce catching passes from Patrick Mahomes by an offensive lineman out of straight granite?
They need to add somebody. The good thing is I do think the offense is pretty well built. Like, you have, I think, 2 decisions to make, and one of those decisions is made in Orlando Brown. And then the rest is the defense. I feel like the depth at every position is pretty good, but you're missing the starters at most positions. I'll feel pretty good about Willie Gay, Nick Bolton as your linebacker. But like Charvarius Ward seems like I don't know that he's going to be gone, but it's just if they were going to give him a contract, you just would have thought it would have happened by now. So probably replacing a starter corner, probably replacing a starter safety, you're probably replacing at least 1 starter on the defensive line, maybe 2, just depending on how everything goes. Jerron Reed's a free agent. Like that's obviously another player. Like the defense has got some, especially at the top level, right?
Definitely.
Your starters, that's where some big decisions are going to have to be made.
The Chiefs season's been over for like 28 hours, and I'm sitting here thinking about how much fun it would be to watch this offense with Calvin Ridley in it.
It'd be good. That dude's a guy.
I've got a sickness of some sort, and the only cure is to not watch. They just picked him off. They just showed the B.J. Hill interception. Hey everybody, NSFW, don't turn on NFL Network.
Is B.J. Hill a free agent this year? Can we sign him and be our second receiver?
Did you see Travis Kelce? Travis Kelce, like just sort of slouched down like Michael Cera's character from Arrested Development.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to see if my mood can get a little bit better before I throw it a break here.
Actually, you know what? I'm just going to...
we can take a break. This is my bit to throw a break.
Do you want to?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it.
Not really.
We can end it.
Let's throw it a break. No, it's fine. I just was feeling pretty bad, so I opened up my phone, and it still says that there's not been any deliveries in my house. It's now 7 minutes from 9 p.m. I'm not getting Pokemon tonight.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
This game is so violent that the congratulatory butt smacks are aggressive.
With Joshua Brisco.
Put me straight to the injured reserve with a bruised butt cheek.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm down so bad right now, man. I just want to be able. I want to talk to Seth. I want to go home. I want to play Pokemon Legends. Makes me sad.
The site did you dirty.
Really did. There was one thing that came up on the post-game show last night that I actually think we'll probably make a much bigger topic out of on Wednesday, but I wanted to at least touch on it here now. Dynasties are really hard to establish, and they almost don't exist throughout NFL history. Had people mention, the 90s Cowboys, they were in and won 3 out of 4. That's incredible, but it was just 3. The Patriots, the absolutely no question top-end dynasty in NFL history, they did a bunch of winning, and then they went an entire decade between Super Bowl wins. The AFC, after they beat the Eagles, the AFC was represented by the Steelers, Colts, Patriots, and a loss. Steelers, Colts, Steelers, Patriots, and a loss. Ravens, Broncos, and then the Patriots finally won again, a decade after winning their last one. This isn't some, distinctly Chiefs failure. It just is another run coming up short for a Super Bowl caliber team. It's really the logic behind why I think there's some retooling that needs to be done, but hardly any big structural rebuilding. It just ends up being a really painful loss in the end of a disappointing season. We'll talk to Seth Keysor about that whenever we come back.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Okay, campers, time to rise and shine. It's getting wild this Wednesday at Hy-Vee. It's the 2.0 Groundhog Day sale on 2/2/22. If a woodchuck could chuck wood, a woodchuck wouldn't miss this one. Bigger savings and wilder hot deals throughout the entire store, like Hy-Vee bacon for $2.22. Bluebell ice cream, just $4.22. And Belfonte yogurt, just 22 cents. Swipe your Fuel Saver card and save 22 cents a gallon with your $50 purchase. Scan the H-shaped QR code to see all the ways you can save. Get hiking into Hy-Vee on 2/2/22 for deals so hot, even Punxsutawney Phil will see his shadow. This isn't deja vu. It's the wild 2.0 Groundhog Day sale this Wednesday from 11 to 7 at your Kansas City area Hy-Vee. Some restrictions apply. See store for details.
Kansas City's hometown sports station, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
And the best team and the smartest team all around won today.
He was trying to move around like he does and make plays, but I could have given him better plays to work with.
Definitely disappointing with this group of guys that we have. We expect to be in that game.
time for very serious football talk with the man who hates money almost as much as he hates the idea of a healthy sleep schedule.
You will find Seth Keysor everywhere except for in his or your bed, because not only does he not sleep, he's also a faithful husband. So that's important.
The man who has so many children, his wife figured he wouldn't even notice if she bought a few chickens and ducks for the backyard.
We could have an episode where we just have my children appear on the show in ascending order. So we'll do like a minute of Lucas, then 2 minutes of Isabel, then 3 minutes of... Man, I have a lot of kids.
The man who does all of this while being a lawyer in a state that has snow all 12 months of the year.
Until it freezes, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I actually felt very at home driving through southern Iowa. It was snow everywhere, and people were slowing down to like 40. It was adorable. I was driving slowly, but I literally was hanging my head out the window screaming, and that was disconcerting.
It's Seth Keysor of the Chief in the North newsletter, The Athletic, and the Times Hours podcast on Almost Entirely Sports.
Usually we talk to Seth Keysor on a Tuesday. We don't have a show this Tuesday. KU basketball tomorrow night here on Sports Radio 810. Usually, if we don't have a show on a Tuesday, we just let Seth live his life. You know, don't try to jack up the schedule right now. We could usually wait, right? We could talk to Seth next week. Well, usually the Chiefs don't lose a heartbreaker in the AFC Championship game in a way that even now at this point tonight we're still trying to perfectly figure out. Seth, we've talked already once today. We did Times Ours. I guess I should tell people that. You can listen to us on Times Ours, a podcast you can get wherever you get your podcasts or on The Athletic. And, of course, you can read Seth's work at mnchiefsfan.substack.com. The Chief in the North newsletter is stupendous. The piece that he made and put up there this morning is fantastic, and I'm sad.
It's a pretty good summary of how it feels to be a Chiefs fan today.
It's just been kind of a dark one.
Yeah, it's a rough day. It's, these don't, man, I'm going to maybe bug some people out of the gate. These don't bug me like they used to. They don't. It's not like this, despair of, God, it's always going to be like this. It's always going to, I'm sitting here in my office right now, and I am looking at a picture collage of Super Bowl 54. And so it doesn't hurt as much as it used to. You know what I mean? Like when you've seen the top of the mountain and you know they can get there again, it doesn't hurt like it did before. But it definitely was a missed opportunity at history. And it hurts in the sense that while we didn't see this coming, we kind of saw it coming all season. It's like we were just starting to trust again this season. Mm-hmm. Like we were like, you know what? Okay, this season was an aberration. We had a few weird things happen, but things are back to normal. And now it's like, well, what is normal? So it's like, there's this questioning of everything that I think is going on for people. But I'm already, a little bit later, a few hours removed. Well, quite a few hours removed. I'm starting to feel a little bit better because, now we can turn our eyes forward. We'll see what next year brings. They were close. They'll be close again next year. Still a good team. Still a great team. They're just not quite as great as they could have been this year.
And the funny thing, not funny, but funny. The funny thing is that, as we talked about over the course of Times Ours, I want to talk to you here, of course, about it as well, is that this wasn't... There wasn't a moment in this game of, that's where the Chiefs have to prepare themselves for next year. We got that in the Super Bowl last year, right?
Yep.
You get, that offensive line is broken. They're going to have to do a full overhaul. We'll get back at it again next year. The other thing is that it wasn't like losing in the Bills game. If the Bills would have won that coin toss, and let's say they do march down and score a touchdown, the Chiefs' season ends in the divisional round. We don't get the fun AFC Championship stats and everything. But I think that would have hurt me a little less because you have the Chiefs playing their best offensive football, and I don't even know if I would have been mad at the defense because somebody else was just playing their best offensive football. And I think immaculate offense is going to win the day most of the time. The thing about this game yesterday is that it even had everything you could have asked for in the first half. And in the second half, I think, based off of what we've already talked about today, what you've written in the newsletter, you just have to start with Patrick Mahomes playing an inexplicable 30 minutes of football. And I don't really know what to do with that.
I'm waiting for the all 22 to come out, and actually I'm downloading it right now. We were talking about it. That way I can manipulate it a little better if I actually download it. But
that would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, and so it is a weird thing because I'm going to need to take a look. But some of those snaps, unless something really weird is going on down the field, some of those snaps are inexplicable. And we already do have all 22 from the broadcast of the final play of regulation, the final offensive play of regulation. Yeah. And that's a good place to start. I think that's where we start on Times Ours as well, where you can watch the all 22 there and you can say he had 2 shots on that play at a touchdown, legitimate ones of the types of throws that he's made 100 times, if not more. Mm-hmm. And that's where it kind of stops and starts. And I think maybe that's one reason why it hurts for Chiefs fans, because as much as Mahomes had a couple of, hey, he's human after all performances this season, in the playoffs, he was still en fuego, right? He was just this unstoppable force of nature. And now you have to go into every playoff game knowing that there's a possibility that he might not be superhuman for 60 minutes, and it makes the margin of error get smaller. Now, to be fair, he was still superhuman for 30 minutes in this game. Well, 28 and a half. Mm-hmm. Or 29 and a half. Mm-hmm. But I think that should serve as some consolation for Chiefs fans. You still have the best quarterback in the world. Yep. A lot of other things still had to happen for the Chiefs to lose this game. And it's the AFC Championship, people. There's a great segment. Greg Popovich once, he was in the finals. He was talking to the Spurs in like a huddle. I don't remember what it is. And he's like, guys, it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
Like, this is incredibly difficult. Winning it all is incredibly hard at the NFL level. And Chiefs fans should know this, but they went 20 plus years without seeing a single playoff win. They got to watch 2 of those this year alone. It's so hard to win. And so the margin of error is already going to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. I think for Chiefs fans, seeing that Mahomes can at times, however rarely, at times be part of the problem, which he was very occasionally this year, much less than any other quarterback in the league, but still more than he'd ever been before, right?
Yeah.
Because even in the Super Bowl last year, he wasn't really the problem. I think that makes Chiefs fans feel a little less, the Grim Reaper thing kind of almost dies before it can really take hold, because he's not always the Reaper. Mm-hmm. And I think that's tough for Chiefs fans, because then that means everything else matters a lot more. And so I get why people are really disappointed. Obviously, they wanted to see another Super Bowl. I've kind of got the perspective on it to where, you know what, they almost made it. They still got a really good team. The one thing, I agree with you, like, with the Bills thing, it's like, you lost to a guy being whatever. Now Patrick Mahomes can be part of the problem. So then I think what you ask yourself is, okay, what would have prevented his struggles from being so stinking dispositive in the second half? And I think that's where they move forward, right?
I couldn't tell if you were done or not. Sometimes you do that long comma, or like it's an ellipses, and you could either pick it back up on the other side of the ellipses, or it could be the end of your statement just to leave everyone thinking at the pregnant pause. In that case, congratulations, it's a pause. So that was a pregnancy joke. So you mentioned this. I joked to keep the pain away. You mentioned this on Times Ours, and it's a phrase that I thought was interesting, but also I think a follow-up question is demanded, and I liked your answer on Times Ours, so I'll ask you again here. You talked about how the Chiefs in this game, especially, in particular, aren't built to overcome a poor performance from Patrick Mahomes. And I feel like we have to ask the follow-up question of, how many teams are built to overcome a bad performance from their quarterback. You mentioned that the 49ers have been good with and without and because of not Jimmy Garoppolo many times over. They are a great example of how you can do that. Now, of course, they have Trey Lance and will move on from Jimmy Garoppolo, and his failings did not help them get to a Super Bowl this year. Gotten quite close, and he was Jimmy Garoppolo still. But so I don't mean to hit you with the what do you mean they can't overcome their quarterback? No one can. But like in the specifics of where you look at this team right now, what could they have done, or how could this team have been different to have given them a better shot yesterday, despite the performance from Patrick Mahomes? And then we can talk about Mahomes a little bit in particular.
Right. And you make a really good point there in terms of like the distinction. Like, it's worth noting, you're not saying that you need a team that can overcome terrible quarterback play consistently, right?
Right.
You need a team that can deal with it for a quarter or two
Mm-hmm.
after a half of awesome football. Like, I'm not saying any team, if you're in the AFC or NFC Championship, you make it that far and your quarterback plays a terrible game and you win, you either got lucky or you were playing a team that didn't deserve to be there, or, you know, some other crazy stuff happened, right? Or like, you know, there were a lot of examples I was going to give there. You're not saying you need the team to be able to perform Mahomes being bad consistently, because he's not going to be. We all know that. He's going to be awesome consistently. But now we know there's just at least an option that he might have a quarter of inexplicably bad play. It can happen. So how do you make it to where, what can you do? And that's where I think, you know, we asked on Times Ours, we were thinking, what does that game look like with a healthy Sammy Watkins?
Mm-hmm.
You know, does he catch a couple of those throws that didn't land where they were supposed to? Or does he open up the play calling in a different way? Or, if you want to think from like a strategic standpoint instead, because the goal isn't, well, how much help does Mahomes need? The goal is to say, how can we guarantee our best shot, right? Yeah. And your best shot is to just be completely overwhelming at all times on offense. Mm-hmm. And that's they should double, triple, quadruple down on offense. Every year they have Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to go to my grave saying that.
Yes.
But the other question from a strategic standpoint is, how do you adjust as a team, seeing what they've seen this year, knowing that maybe sometimes they're built differently now? You know, how do you adjust to the idea that maybe there are times where running the ball makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lesson that I'm curious what Andy Reid goes into this offseason, looking at what his offensive line does well, looking at what Mahomes does well, and saying, you know, we've built our team around RPOs for a few years now. The league is catching up a little bit to that, and it doesn't provide quite the same edge that it used to, while at the same time costing us variety in our run game, which isn't that important, but it can be important, right? And it can also at times cost you variety in some of your pass sets. And so that's worth at least noting. So those are the things that they're going to have to figure out. Or is it, well, we need a better defense, but we know, based on all available evidence, that it's really tough to have a consistently great defense.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, do you do whatever you can to have it support? Because the defense, by and large, supported the offense most of the day. They just couldn't do enough. You know, because they had their fair share of misses and that kind of stuff too. Like, if you know, every game, you know, it's always a team thing. I would say this was a 65-35. 65 on the offense, 35 on the defense.
Yeah, I mean...
And maybe even 70-30.
I think I would have said 70-30 just to be incredibly precise for no reason. I think it was 72-28. I did the math in it. It added up to 100.
You notice that you're leaning a little more towards it being on the offense each time. Because the defense really, you're talking in that second half, it's like punt, but then touchdown, but then punt, interception. They got them the ball back multiple times. They had multiple shots. And when your team that's built around your offense, they got to take advantage of those.
Right. They pressured Joe Burrow at an actually pretty good rate and sacked him one time. Nick Bolton almost made an incredible play that would have been a pick that would have been awesome. Like, those are things that almost happened. The defense could have done more, but they did enough, right? Like, 24 points in regulation, we all would have hit the big red button for that one.
Yep, if you could guarantee 24 points from the Bengals, knowing nothing else, you hit this button and it's 24 guaranteed, we all would have hit that button.
I think we would hit that for a season. If you said, hey, the Chiefs are going to give up 24 points every game all year long, what do you want to do about it? I say, all right, yeah, that's fine. We can take that.
Yeah, most games, they're going to win that.
Yes.
And so it's just a matter of understanding what can you do to maybe maximize the performance from the rest of the team. And I think the weird thing about thinking that way is that's not a way we've had to think as Chiefs fans. Because Mahomes has been so singularly great. And it's just a different way of having to think that kind of brings him down to earth a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's the most mortal he's looked.
Well, so let's talk about that too. Again, I know you're just kind of now cracking into the All-22, and people will have something to read soon up on the Chief of the North newsletter, and we will all read it, and it might just take a little longer, and maybe somebody will be, chopping onions while reading it. Maybe they're going to have to read it, 4 paragraphs at a time and then go take a little walk, whatever. But with the asterisk that the All-22 is not out yet, and for you haven't gone through all that yet, and if you have some different takeaway, we'll talk to you about it next week. But looking at the game in real time and what you've seen again today leading up to the All-22 and the general performance from Patrick Mahomes, what happened?
I mean, I think I'll look at this from a few different perspectives. From a player perspective, the guys that the Chiefs depend on to be excellent were not. Travis Kelce was overall excellent, but he dropped and just one drop pass. That's not fair, especially a well-contested pass. But that first drive out, Mahomes, on one of his best throws of the second half, lofted the ball after a bad snap, lofts the ball over the defensive back's head. Kelce gets 2 hands on it, but it's contested, and he just can't hang on. Now, had he hauled that in, now it's 21-10. You got the ball at the 50, fresh set of downs. And in football, you see how fast, and Tony Romo talked about this down the stretch, how fast it goes from 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter to 3 minutes left on the fourth quarter. It always is shocking.
Yeah.
It's amazing how quickly that script can flip. And that's why in the second half, you shouldn't be playing ball control. That's losing football. But you should be aware of how much that affects things. Like when you're thinking about what happened, how much that drive ending that way affected the whole game, right? Mm-hmm. Because what if they get 3 points, but they take another 5 minutes off the clock, right? Yeah. Now you're up 14 with, you know what I mean? It alters the entire game. That happened with Kelce. Tyreek Hill dropped a pair of contested. That overtime throw to Hill, he mistimed his jump a little bit. Had he jumped a half second later, he would have met the ball before the safety got there. Safety made a great play on the ball, but that was catchable. That was you got to come down with that. Like, this is it. And it was a good ball. It went above the corner. It beat the safety there by a split second, and he mistimed the jump just by a split second. Not a perfect throw, but a really, really, really good one, and Hill had a shot. So those guys failed. Mahomes failed on multiple downs. He ran himself into some sacks. Another thing he did on that, where he could have had a touchdown late in the game, on that final drive, he started to drift in the pocket when he didn't need to. They were only rushing 3, and the offensive line was devouring those guys.
Yep, I think it was 2 double teams and Orlando Brown.
Orlando Brown, low key, had a really good game.
Yep.
From the snaps that I've watched.
I think I vaguely remember him getting whooped once, and that's the only memory I have.
That one was really bad.
but one out of however many snaps they ran, that's okay.
Yeah, he also had a couple where he just took Trey Hendrickson's soul right out of his body, and it was hilarious. But so Mahomes, he's got great protection, and he starts to drift right, and by drifting right, he provides just a hole for the spy to sprint right towards him. Had he just stayed put, it would have been fine. And it also, it was there was a lot that went into that, and instead he just that tendency to drift, it just got him, and so he ran himself into a few sacks. The interception, it looked like a screen to the middle of the field, but you got to just throw it away if it's not there. So from the human element, their playmakers, their best guys, the guys they rely on, just failed in a way that they usually don't. Maybe that last play of the first half got in Mahomes' head. I don't know. Because he failed there too. He usually moves on from stuff pretty quick, but I don't know. From a schematic standpoint, from a I think this is what happened standpoint, I think the Bengals said we are going to do an extreme version of what teams have done to the Chiefs all year.
Yeah.
And they did it. They dropped back in with 8 guys in coverage against a team that had a double-digit lead.
Yeah.
And they dared them to run the ball, and a couple times they had okay stops. But if you really look at the numbers from running the ball in the second half, the Chiefs were running the ball pretty well. Now, that gets a little bit messed up because McCole Hardman had a couple of 9-yard runs. But guess what? Then run the ball with McCole Hardman a few more times.
Yeah, fine with me. Sure.
You had things that were working, and they went away from it. And I get it. You are who you are. You go with your bread and butter, and statistically speaking, passing the ball is the right move, especially with Patrick Mahomes. The vast majority of the time. But man, when they're backing off with 8 guys in coverage. And like an example of this is one of the sacks that Mahomes took. It was on 3rd and 3.
Yeah.
And they ran an empty. And not just an empty, I don't even know if they had a running back there threatening to run. And if you look, wide open for those 3 yards to be had. Easily. You just line a running back, you run duo, and you just run forward for 3 yards. And Clyde's been running the ball really hard in the postseason. Mm-hmm. So was McKinnon. It was there for the taking, and it just seemed like, despite an entire season of teams kind of building up to this kind of felt like the final boss level of what teams have been doing with the Chiefs all year.
Yeah, and they couldn't beat it.
And they just couldn't beat it. And
because they kept doing the same strategy for a different boss from earlier in the game.
Yeah. And they, to their credit, they at the end of the season, you know who the number 1 rated corner in the or quarterback was in the league against 2 high safety looks? Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. So they figured that out. And they figured out how to be patient, take what the defense. We just watched them do it. We watched them destroy it against the Bills, right?
Yep.
And the Bengals said, we're gonna do it even more. We are gonna triple down on this strategy because nothing else they were doing was working. They were getting just killed in the first half. And the Chiefs just didn't have an answer for it. They basically said, we don't think the Chiefs will keep running the ball no matter what we do. And the Chiefs didn't. I'm not saying it would have worked to hand the ball off every play, but I kind of wish they would have tried because they had like 5 straight possessions where passing the ball was doing nothing. And I think at a certain point, especially if you're going to, drop a first rounder on a running back, if you're going to spend all this to fix the offensive line, which they needed to do, you at least try. Yeah. And that's where that schematic, strategic stuff, that's a big part of it.
I mean, we talk all the time about where we pick at NFL teams running the ball too much is in neutral situations or whenever teams are running the ball for the sake of running the ball. If you hear a coach say they want to run the ball half the time and throw the ball half the time, that coach will be unemployed in 2 years unless they're Pete Carroll, and then he'll just be there forever, I guess. But that is not a perfect binary. There are situations where, obviously running if you had 11 Pee Wee players out there. Well, I guess at that point, if you had 7 Pee Wee players in the box and then 2 Jalen Ramseys and Tyrann Mathieu and Juan Thornhill, okay? If that's the defense you're playing up against, I would go ahead and run the football, right? And like the Bengals were running not quite that. They had adults in the box, but there weren't that many of them, and they were not playing particularly heavy sets. So that's a place where everyone on planet Earth should have an argument for putting the ball on the ground there some. I've got 2 angles because I have been, this is going to be embarrassing, writing things down as you were talking there because that's how many different elements of this I feel like went wrong.
Well, I talked for a long time too.
Which is great because I'm tired of talking, particularly about this thing that makes me so sad. It's like, oh, great, this is cool. I mean, we've been out here for a while. I did like a post-game show and a half last night. We've been doing this, did times ours. I've got most of my takes out at this point. I'm glad that you're here. I appreciate you making a Monday exception for us. But whenever you say, you look at the philosophical errors there, or the choices that they made and didn't make there. Look, I don't have any interest in doing a Fire Andy Reid show, right? I think that we are well beyond that. But do you do something about that? Is there something to do? And I don't know if that's Andy Reid or if that's Eric Bieniemy or if Patrick Mahomes needs to, know whenever he should actually just leave the ball in the gut of the running back instead of pulling it out there. I am genuinely asking on that front because I do not have a secret take holstered away. Is there a fix to that? Is there something to be learned there that you think can have an action step?
If I were the Chiefs, I would really look long and hard about having an offense that's based around RPOs. Obviously that's been the buzzword of the NFL for years, and they should use a fair amount of it. But I do think that would be one thing they could do is have a little more of you wouldn't call it traditional, but I guess you could, for lack of a better term, like a traditional spread offense type looks, and maybe a little more under center play action bootleg. You know what I mean? Just a little more, almost change things up a little bit to run a little less based on the RPO stuff, because as many iterations of it as you can have, it still limits the types of looks you can use. And it also creates a situation where you're asking a guy who's almost always going to think keeping the ball is the way to go to not always keep the ball. Yeah. And so I think that's one thing to do. The other is just honestly know that, okay, fine, he's not superhuman. He's the greatest. He's still off to the greatest start of any career or of any quarterback's career ever. Easily. It's not even hard. And that's what's funny about all the comparisons that get made. But you know he can be human occasionally, so how can we best support him for those moments where he is human? And to me, you've already done a great job with the offensive line. Maybe they look at what they might want to do with right tackle still. But offensive line, okay, they did a great job of that. Now you just ask yourself, okay, well, what do we need more? We need reliable pass catchers who can, I mean, when you look at what Chase and Higgins did for Burrow, I'm going to get in trouble with this. Joe Burrow played fine. He had some really awesome scrambles, right? But those were like his best plays.
Yeah.
That offense is predicated on its playmakers. And Burrow, to his credit, he just never makes mistakes, which is huge, right? When you've got great playmakers. And it's hard to do when you're under pressure as much as he is. But he never makes mistakes. He's got great accuracy and anticipation in his throws, and he doesn't panic, like ever. And when you combine that stuff with guys like Chase and Higgins, it works. There were catches that got made that the Chiefs need that kind of catch. You need more guys that can create yardage. Hardman's a guy that can create yardage, but you can't count on him in certain other aspects of the game. So if I were the Chiefs, I would really say, and this is why I think you hear rumors about Juju Smith-Schuster, maybe they should go after, OBJ, whatever. I think the Chiefs understand that. And that's why they paid Sammy Watkins all that money.
Yeah.
And so that would be the next step there. And then you got to figure out what you're going to do with the defense, because I'd be surprised if it was the same cast of characters that came back next year.
On what scale? I mean, you just throughout, to what extent, I guess?
I think, and you don't want to read too much into what a guy tweets and what a guy says in post, interviews. Tyrann Mathieu looked pretty emotional. I mean, like, his voice was shaken when he was, I mean, and that guy cares desperately about winning. He's disappointed. I get it. But he did not sound like a guy who thinks he's coming back.
Yeah.
He's not tweeting like a guy who thinks he's coming back. And not that he's tweeting anything wrong. He's being very thankful and very, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And that doesn't sound like a guy who thinks he's going to get $20 million a year from the Chiefs. And the Chiefs have to think about that. Tyrann Mathieu's a great player, but if they have some revamping to do, is that the place to do it? I don't know.
Got to have cap space to bring back Dan Sorensen.
And so you're talking guys like, if Matthew's gone, I think Dan Sorensen's probably gone as a given. I think they really need to look long and hard about whether keeping certain types of players on the roster almost creates a handicap for their coaching staff who can't seem to help themselves but put certain guys out there.
You mean, what do you mean certain kinds of players?
Certain kinds of players who don't play well. You know what? I'm just going to say players who really seem like they probably practice really well. And the Dan Sorensens and Ben Niemans of the
I mean, you could have just said
who it seems like they have an affinity for guys
so gentle. Grinders, high football IQ, coaches' kids.
Guys who tend to do the
Seth,
right
why do you want the Chiefs to cut all their white players?
Stop it. So I will not be baited into this. They just happen to both be white.
I understand.
That is unfair.
It is absolutely unfair.
But it's funny. So
that's all
fair.
That's all I can do.
That's all that matters. So there seems to be a problem there in terms of, these guys, they execute. They're going to always do what we want them to do. But, the problem is you end up taking more physically talented players off the field. And I mean, the fact that you still have Ben Niemann able to not run down Joe Burrow to the sideline because he's so obsessed with executing the correct assignment. And I get it. He was still covering a guy, but Burrow had committed to running, and Niemann's just not fast enough downhill to catch him.
Yep.
You know who is? Willie Gay.
Yep.
You know who probably is in that scenario too? Nick Bolton. Those are problematic things. They're going to need to figure out who they are defensively. They got to figure out Frank Clark's contract. They got to figure out Tyrann Mathieu. They got to figure out Anthony Hitchens. You're talking, these are core guys in terms of snaps.
Yeah.
And
also huge players from like the start of what would be this era. I mean, like cornerstone guys.
Yep, this would be kind of a complete shift from the defensive. We had this huge revamping from 2018 to 2019. They kind of seem like they might need another one. And Charvarius Ward is a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
And he matters. They've asked him to do a lot.
Yeah.
And so there's just, now they've done a pretty good job drafting. They've got some pieces, but what are you going to do? Because they could have the cap space to make a big swing on at least one defensive player. Two, actually, if they don't bring back Matthew.
Yeah.
They can't afford to have another miss there.
Yep.
If they're going to revamp things. And so that's the other thing. As you start turning the page, the other thing you can do to protect your quarterback is to have a defense that's a little more consistent. And this year, they just weren't.
So you know how I feel about Steve Spagnuolo, generally speaking.
Yeah.
I like Spags. I think the turnaround the defense had this year was real and worthwhile, and I don't think the defense is the issue here yesterday. If they were going to do a relatively large overhaul, if you're talking about the three, I'm off the top of my head, but like three of the four highest paid guys on that defense, I think, with Chris Jones being the exception, or at least, guys they sunk a ton in on, being Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark and Anthony Hitchens, a real chance that none of them are here next year. If you were going to uproot a significant amount of the defense anyway, do you feel like Steve Spagnuolo would be the right guy to do another sort of round of retooling on that? If Vic Fangio is out there, or there was a couple other names that were kind of interesting. Again, this is another place I'm genuinely asking. I do not have my answer yet. I will steal your answer for the rest of time.
I think Steve Spagnuolo is a good defensive coordinator. I think right now there's a couple of great ones out there.
Yeah.
And now that doesn't mean you part ways, though, because, loyalty matters. And the Chiefs went from having a horrific defense to they've had a good defense the last 3 years, or at least an average to above average defense. And that matters. But there's got to be questions about, why the inconsistency? Is it personnel? And that's a good argument to make, because when Frank Clark was playing at the level that he was supposed to this year, the defense looked way better.
Yep.
And so then that kind of becomes a Brett Veach question.
Yep.
Like, are you going to be able to bring in guys who are actual difference makers consistently? Because right now, on the defense, you've got Chris Jones. In terms of elite guys, that's it. Because Matthew, if he doesn't come back, you've got a ton of guys with potential, ton of interesting guys, good players. But where are your difference makers? And the last time they poured money into difference makers, it was Tyrann Mathieu, one of the best free agent signings in team history. Mm-hmm. Anthony Hitchens, that one's tough. Mm-hmm. And Frank Clark, that one's pretty tough too. Now, I still don't think they regret it, because that Super Bowl run, I'm not sure happens without him playing at the level he did.
And that one also wasn't a free agent. That was a draft pick.
Yeah, that was a trade. They paid market value and beyond for him.
Right.
And so, if you're going to do something that, again, by God, it better be someone who performs at like a Chris Jones-ish level, right? It better be someone who is in the conversation for the top 5 to 7 best edge guys in the NFL. And the only reason I even go as high as 7 is because there's so many good guys, right?
Yeah.
There's so many good ones. But if you're gonna take a chance, it's got to be someone who plays at the level like Von Miller has played at for the Rams. Maybe it's Von Miller. That would be cool.
I would like for it to be someone on a 1 or 2 year deal and not a 9-year one, which is what I feel like Frank Clark and Anthony Hitchens were on, which I know is not it.
Yeah,
but it just sort of feels like that. It feels
that's
like
it exactly.
Frank Clark when I'm 40.
That's it exactly. It's really not the salary cap stuff. People are gonna be in slack-jawed amazement when the Chiefs again restructure Mahomes' contract and create $20 million in space again.
Yes, again.
And then they're going to be able to create, if they want to, they can snap their fingers and have $60 million in cap space for 2022 and a lot more beyond. So they've got the money to spend, but you need difference makers, because it's not just about the money you spend, it's about the snaps you give out. And they need some difference makers on defense who can be a little more consistent. When Melvin Ingram comes in and makes that big an impact, and Melvin Ingram's a good player, but he shouldn't, he in a lot of games is probably their second or third best defensive player. That should not happen when he's a guy that you acquired for a 6th-round pick. So they need to be judicious, and I think they've done a good job acquiring a good group of guys. But now you need that the centerpieces around which that defense revolves. And if it's not going to be Matthew, and there's arguments back and forth to be made there, and it's not going to be Clark, and there's not as many arguments to be made there, in my opinion, you need to find some other guys because it can't just be Chris Jones. That doesn't work. We saw that even in 2018, right? Where it wasn't just Chris Jones. Like Ford and Houston were both really good that year, but it wasn't enough. You need guys to revolve a defense around. So that's the other way you can support Mahomes now that we know that, oh, hey, he's actually human.
I've got two real quick things, then we can get out of here. One, back to Mahomes here. This might just be something that I want you to look at whenever you go through the All-22. But it just feels like his back was facing the line of scrimmage a significant number of times. And that might just be like 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6. I'm not sure. Sometimes that can turn into wonderful plays, and I acknowledge that. But the pressure you mentioned earlier, the bailing out of a clean pocket, I don't know if he had happy feet or not. I know you chart some of those things already, bailing out of clean pockets and happy feet and flushes and all of that. But if you want to add maybe for one game just back to the line of scrimmage, I feel like there might be a career high there. I don't know if we can get fantasy points for that or anything.
Could name it a chicken with his head cut off snap.
Ooh, that or you know what? What if you call it a pirouette? Number of pirouettes. That's a full swing. I'm just curious to see that, and I'm excited to see your film review when that comes out. Here's the other thing. This is a two-parter. It can be as quick as you need or as short as you want or as in-depth as you'd like. But if you could have added one blue-chip player, a top 5 player at their position, to the Chiefs mid-season for 1 year or at the beginning of the year for 1 year. Ultimately, maybe it's just for the Bengals game, but we think they would play at the level they would have if they had been with the team, right? What position group would that have been from? And if you, with the conversation we just had about the both sides of the ball going forward, if there was one position group that you were going to be easy to talk into splurging on, what would it be?
Wide receiver.
For both of them?
Not even... Say again?
For both the Bengals game and the future?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so too.
For this season,
it makes me so mad.
Game,
we spent a year talking about it, Seth.
Well, and that was the thing. It's a testament to how good Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are, and how specific skill sets like Mecole Hardman's can be used in a way that overcomes some stuff. But yeah, absolutely. If you could add a blue chip player, imagine if you could add Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
The difference that would have made, because you know what they could have called? Hey, we're going to throw it to Jamar, and Jamar, will you please do something? Because holy crap, nothing else is working.
Yeah.
And the problem is, Travis Kelce can be that guy, but he also can't in some senses because of the way opposing teams treat him.
Yeah, he's one dude. He's the best tight end of all time, but he's only one of them.
And Tyreek Hill is another guy that you can bank on, an elite player, but what happens every now and then, your 3 elite guys, they might just be in a bit of a funk. They might make a couple of mistakes. So it's kind of like complementary pass rush, right? Yeah. Your elite pass rushers maybe win 20 to 25% of their snaps. So if you have 2 of them, for one thing, you might have incredible pressure on some plays when they double up. But they're not always going to double up. They're not always both going to get pressure on the same play. But that means now instead of pressure on 25% of your plays, now you've got pressure on, say, 35 or 40%. And it's the same thing with these elite playmakers. You've got guys that can just make those plays. And that's where I think you'd see the biggest difference would be there's always going to be 3 receivers on the field. And that just, it adds to everything you can do. It changes the way defenses play you. And this year they didn't have a Sammy Watkins. And you could see the difference. You want to know one reason why you didn't see a lot of Byron Pringle this game? Because the Bengals were playing really aggressive press man coverage, and for most of his career, he hasn't been able to beat that, and this was no different. Yeah. Same with Mecole Hardman. Now, Hardman was upset that he felt like he was open sometimes. I have no idea. I'll check the film. Maybe Mahomes was just playing that crappy in the second half, and maybe it really wasn't about weapons. But that's something I would at least look at. Either that or just pass rusher.
Yep. Those would have, I think, been the 2 places I would have gone also. And now I'm just sad again.
Yeah.
Well,
we laugh so we do not weep.
Yeah, and we laughed at the beginning, and now I'm out of jokes. If you want to read Seth's piece on this game, the first one out on the Chief of the North newsletter, self-inflicted the finale. And I will say, Seth, when I saw the headline, I did smile because at least you got to end the season being clever and closing a loop, which if you have to be sad, at least be clever. That's up there now, and the All-22 on Patrick Mahomes' game, which I think we don't know what the title will be yet because you haven't looked at it, but we had joked that it could either be, was that as bad as you thought, or, oh God, it was as bad as you thought, or some variation within. Maybe it'll be, hey, Patrick Mahomes actually was pretty good. It was everyone else who let him down. But I don't think that we think that that's how that review is going to go.
I don't think it will be either. I think it's going to be a bloodbath.
I mean, maybe that should have been the end of the segment. It's just, I feel like it's going to be a bloodbath. Oh, God. Seth, thank you as always. It's always wonderful to get to talk to you Monday, Tuesday, or anything else. Check out Times Ours. That episode today was not fun, but good. And, of course, go check out the Chief of the North newsletter. Follow him on Twitter at RealMNChiefsFan. Seth, we'll talk to you again soon. We'll get into off-season mode. And, well, I guess I just got to say thanks for being here.
You know what? Thanks for having me. It's been a good season, and I hope people understand that.
We do. It's just also that it's been a bloodbath.
Well,
At
you
Robert
can.
Brogdon's Olathe Kia, they're so confident in their new vehicles, they're offering a 90-day money-back guarantee with no mileage restriction. From the 2022 Kia Telluride to the 2022 Sportage or Soul, get what you absolutely want or return it if it's not right for you. Plus, all new Kias are backed by a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Drive with confidence in a new Kia from Robert Brogdon. Shop OlatheKia.com or stop by. Just a short drive from I-35. Customer must register vehicle. Warranty is limited powertrain warranty. See Kia.com or retailer for details.
Do you know what the top 3 New Year's resolutions are? Losing weight, quitting smoking, and paying off credit cards. A1 Mortgage can't help you lose those pounds or put out the smoke, but we can help you with a fast, easy refinance that will knock out that credit card debt. Call A1 Mortgage at 816-822-8888. That's 822-8888, or apply online at a1mortgage.com. Contact A1 Mortgage and ask about the fast, easy refinance that has no out-of-pocket closing costs, no application fee, and you can even skip 2 months of payments. So call your doctor about losing those holiday pounds and kicking the nicotine. Call A1 Mortgage about helping with those holiday bills. 816-822-8888. That's 822-8888, or apply online at a1mortgage.com.
A1 Mortgage, making your dreams a reality is what we do.
A1 Mortgage Group, LLC, a Kansas and Missouri licensed mortgage company, NMLS 268370. Terms and conditions apply. Subject to change without notice.
Running right to the 20, back to the left 10, 5, touchdown!
Super Bowl 56 is coming to America's largest all-sports radio station. Sports Radio 810, WHB.
High snap, put down, kick is up, and the kick is good! He got it!
Follow all the action right here on your home for the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl. Sports Radio 810, WHB.
Do you purchase products for the food service industry? Then get Regal. Healthcare, get Regal. Hospitality, get Regal. Go to getregal.com. Regal Distributing is a local Kansas City company in the food service and janitorial industry for over 60 years. Regal Distributing saves your business time and money by providing customers with the right product. The time is now to buy from a company that will service the heck out of you. Buy local, buy smart, and buy from a trusted company that has been helping their customers grow for decades. Visit getregal.com and get Regal today.
Kansas City's hometown sports station. Sports Radio 810, WHB.
And the best team and the smartest team all around won today.
He was trying to move around like he does and make plays, but I could have given him better plays to work with.
Definitely disappointing with this group of guys that we have. We expect to be in that game and to win that game.
When you want the latest on your favorite teams, tune into your hometown radio station. Sports Radio 810, WHB.
Inventory is starting to build up, selection is increasing, and the finance rates have remained low. It's the perfect time to make a move to an Aristocrat Motors of Lee Summit pre-owned vehicle. Choose from sports cars, sports sedans, trucks, and SUVs. all presented by our professional sales team in the best of facilities. Lee Summit has welcomed Aristocrat Motors of Lee Summit. Now let us welcome you to our home, 704 Southwest Oldham Court, or online at aristocratmotorsls.com.
Yes, I'm so sorry about the wait, ma'am. I'll be with you shortly. Carrie, how many appointments did we book at 2:30?
Jin's physical therapy clinic is pretty stretched. He needs another PT before patients get bent out of shape.
Can you get a fresh ice pack for Miss Davis's knee?
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Do you purchase products for the food service industry? Then get Regal. Healthcare, get Regal. Hospitality, get Regal. Go to getregal.com. Regal Distributing is a local Kansas City company in the food service and janitorial industry for over 60 years. Regal Distributing saves your business time and money by providing customers with the right product. The time is now to buy from a company that will service the heck out of you. Buy local, buy smart, and buy from a trusted company that has been helping their customers grow for decades. Visit getregal.com and get Regal today.
Kansas City's hometown sports station, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
And the best team and the smartest team all around won today.
He was trying to move around like he does and make plays, but I could have given him better plays to work with.
Definitely disappointing with this group of guys that we have. We expect to be in that game and to win that game.
When you want the latest on your favorite teams, tune into your hometown radio station, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
With winter storms coming, your car is going to take a hit. At Precision Dent Repair KC, they have great specials to restore your car back to brand new. Right now, purchase a ceramic coating detail package and get $150 in dent repair free, or the bumper repair special for just $399. Also, if you spend $275 or more in dent repairs, receive a car detail package valued at $150 at no extra charge. Precision Dent Repair KC. Call 913-905-9932 or online at PrecisionDentRepairKC.com. Pricing may vary for excessive damage.
Running right to the 20, back to the left 10, 5, touchdown!
Super Bowl 56 is coming to America's largest all-sports radio station, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
High snap, put down, kick is up, and the kick is good! He got it!
Follow all the action right here on your home for the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl. Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Do you purchase products for the food service industry? Then get Regal. Healthcare, get Regal. Hospitality, get Regal. Go to getregal.com. Regal Distributing is a local Kansas City company in the food service and janitorial industry for over 60 years. Regal Distributing saves your business time and money by providing customers with the right product. The time is now to buy from a company that will service the heck out of you. Buy local, buy smart, and buy from a trusted company that has been helping their customers grow for decades. Visit getregal.com and get Regal today.
Kansas City's hometown sports station, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
And the best team and the smartest team all around won today.
He was trying to move around like he does and make plays, but I could have given him better plays to work with.
Definitely disappointing with this group of guys that we have. We expect to be in that game and to win that game.
When you want the latest on your favorite teams, tune into your hometown radio station, Sports Radio 810 WHB. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
Some people click this podcast and it says like more on Spencer Ware to injured reserve, which isn't official yet, but whatever, and breaking down the Chiefs trade. And like, all right, hell yeah, Chiefs trade
with Joshua Brisco.
And they clicked it, and we're 10 minutes in, and I'm about to explain the story of this pineapple hat that I'm wearing
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Thanks again to our friend Seth Keysor of the Chief in the North newsletter. If you haven't yet and you have the stomach for it, I really would go check out that piece that went up this morning. And the Mahomes All-22 is going to be a really interesting thing to watch. And again, I mean, that's just sort of the place that I keep getting stuck here talking about this game, is that we saw the greatest quarterback currently throwing a football professionally play 30 minutes of poor football, a bad decision at the end of the first half, and then a second half that just never really worked. The thing that you heard from Seth at the end there, though, the blue chip player question. He says he'd take a receiver. Would have taken one for that game, would take one for the future. And I will belabor this point plenty, and I will also try not to do it too much. But, I mean, this is, if you are going to take a stance like that, and Seth knows this. This is not me, critiquing Seth after the fact. This is for everybody to think about as we head into the evening. Whenever you have those errors that pop up, man, those had better be unexpected, or those had better be the result of some bad injuries or something that was beyond your control. Because whenever you make choices that end up coming back to bite you in big moments, that's exactly when those choices do land. This is hardly me telling you that Brett Veach is a dope, okay? I'm not saying that. He's not. I quite like Brett Veach. We're apparently going to hear from him tomorrow, and I will be very interested to hear what he has to say. I'm sure he'll be asked about Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark and Anthony Hitchens and maybe Damon Arnett. I don't know. I'd like to hear someone speak on that still, but whatever. I can let that one go. It's just, just an embarrassing stretch for the team. But if you are going, and this is, maybe it's Veach, maybe it's Andy Reid, apparently Patrick Mahomes liked the pick. If you're going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire over T. Higgins or over Michael Pittman Jr., to not be revisionist, I probably would have gone Pittman at that time. Either one would be great in this offense right now. If you're not going to invest in that receiver position, you better hope it doesn't come back to bite you. They were players on Juju Smith-Schuster, and it sounded like they were players on Odell Beckham Jr. as well. I don't think they're dumb, right? I just think that eventually you have a set of choices where you spend a little more money on Frank Clark, Anthony Hitchens, even a guy like Joe Tooney, who was excellent this year. You spend a lot of money in these other spots. All of a sudden, you can't spend the little more it would take to lock down Juju, or you spend that draft pick on the combination of, you get Braylon Speaks and Clyde Edwards-Helaire instead of Jesse Bates and T. Higgins. I'm rubbing salt right up in that wound right now. I'm sorry that's going to be the way that we end this show here tonight. But you see the issues and the things we talked about for an entire bleeping off season. We talked about that second receiver spot so much. Can it be McCole Hardman? Maybe it's Byron Pringle. Could it be Cornell Powell? Oh, it's going to be Josh Gordon. And now we're here just still at this point of realizing that we got to the end of the season and that question never really got answered completely. It's a tough spot to be in, but also it's going to leave us plenty to talk about over the course of this offseason. And I will actually end the show on a slightly brighter note, if you'll let me. Had lots of people who said nice things over the course of the post-game show last night. Seen lots of things on Twitter as well. Obviously, this has been a pretty bonkers 6 months or so for me personally, between the almost dying, diabetes, getting engaged, and all of those things. And also been a wild time for this football team, been a wild time in sports media, been a wild time on the radio, and I am just very, very grateful. This is not like some extreme sign-off or anything, but it's the last sort of post-game show of the regular season, or the postseason, that is. No show tomorrow night. We got KU basketball on 8:10. We'll be back on Wednesday. I'm not going anywhere. We're back on Wednesday. But taking the moment to be a little bit retrospective on what this year has been, this football season, and just how tremendously grateful I am to everyone who makes it to the last few minutes of a show on a Monday after a bad Chiefs loss. The people who are here for the serious Chiefs stuff, who are here for the power rankings and the nonsense, who maybe love the Pokemon talk more than anything else. Maybe you just grin and bear it. Maybe even hit the 45-second forward button on your podcatcher of choice. Whatever it is, however it is that you've enjoyed this show, I'm just very, very grateful for how this show has gone, for the shows we've been able to do, and for being able to continue doing them. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that without the former and no longer with us and dearly departed Beards McFly, and obviously Rudy Salazar still here with us and still, on this mortal coil, making this show work every night that we're out here. So very appreciative to everyone who's been listening throughout this season. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to do so much Chiefs talk, not just the rest of this week, but throughout the rest of the off season. We'll do our baseball. We'll do our college basketball. We will talk about Pokemon at some point. We will get there. But we're going to do a lot of off season, a lot of free agency, a lot of salary cap, a lot of draft stuff, because I think it's fun. And if the tweets and the Twitch comments and the calls or any judgment of that, it seems like you think that as well. So thanks for being here for this Chiefs season. We're off tomorrow because of KU basketball. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday night. Until then, bye, Mom.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.